I'll introduce you, and I think we are live. So,
Woohoo!
welcome back, everybody, to CHAS and Friends. This is episode number 18, and I have none other than the amazing Derri with us today. So,
High
um,
praise.
well,
Hi.
you're worthy of the high praise. So, just if you're new to watching Chasm Friends and you're new to Derri, you've never heard of her before. I've got her links down in the description. You should definitely go check Derri out and subscribe. Um, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll go from there.
Alrighty. Well, I'm Derri. My channel is Derri's Read It Before because I only talk about books that I've read before. I verbalized it for myself the other day and thought, well, I tend not to talk about books on the first read because I always feel like I learn a lot more on the second read. And if I don't want to talk about it after the second read, then it clearly wasn't worth talking about. So
I like that philosophy. That's good.
So at the moment, it's still pretty much purely Realm of the Eldlings and Discworld. That will
Mhm.
start branching out shortly when I sort of have spoken about the books there until I've covered the published works, and then move into the next couple of things. So we'll get there.
That's fantastic.
Mm. The information will become broader slight over time. Just that there's quite a lot of books in the Realm of the Elderlings and in Discworld. So
Yes, there
I think
are. There are a lot, and
mm,
lots of other content that you can talk about in the realm of the books, uh,
absolutely
and not just the books themselves. Yeah, there's a lot there.
there really
Uh,
is.
Andrew, of course, is in the house.
Whoop, whoop.
And we got Kaiju K here.
Hi.
Hi,
Oh, look at all these
Derri.
lovely people. So
Awesome
yes.
times. Derri is the best. Yes, indeed, she sure
Oh,
is.
thanks, guys. So yes, because I read Terry Pratchett's biography
Hey,
that
Kevin.
came out at the end of last month.
Oh
That
yeah.
was really emotional.
Oh, I bet.
Mm. I
Yeah.
even ended up with a bit of a cry when I was talking to Raf about it. I was like, do you know what?
Yeah.
I'm okay. People seeing me cry about that. I was emotional. That was valid.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
absolutely, it's valid. I forgot that had come out. I may have to check that out. I've still barely just scratched the surface of Discworld, but I mean I'm a huge fan of Good Omens as well.
It does
And
talk about good omens, and it talks. I mean, obviously it's Terry Pratchett, and obviously it's Discworld,
hmm
but the book is more about him as who he was as a bloke, and the fact that he approached writing as a job. Um,
hmm
when he did finally go to full time writing, it was daily goals, daily word goals, and how he processed that. And then as the book goes on and it starts to go into the medical side toward the end of his life, he was diagnosed with a rare form of Alzheimer's, and it looks at that really closely because it's written by Rob Wilkins, who was his longtime assistant.
Oh
So
yeah.
he was there. He was there literally in the office when Terry was diagnosed. He was there for all the family drama, and he was there for the funny things that Terry did while he wrote. So, and he doesn't try and give a false sense of distance in the book either. He very much goes, I was here and I was emotionally invested. So you feel his emotion as well, which I
Oh
think is
yeah.
brilliant. And as for a look at the last few years, final stages of being around somebody you care about who has something degenerative, I thought it was really insightful. And I think if you, even if you're not into Discworld, just as a life of somebody genuinely interesting, it's a great book. Really great book.
Wow, that's good to know. I'll
Mm,
definitely have to check it out. I've never been too big into biographies, but I have read a few that I really enjoyed, and
yeah.
if I've found that if I have investment in the person
Mm,
being written about,
yeah.
I tend to enjoy it more, and I do. I really like. I have a feeling I'd like reading about Terry. So
I enjoyed it. I very much liked hearing from somebody who genuinely knew about the genesis of Discworld, and how I've always said, it was a part-time thing. He was just kind of dabbling. And then Mort was a response to Neil Gaiman asking for more. And we get the full story of that. And ultimately, he's asked for more about death. Terry was working on something else, but once the request was in his head, he couldn't get rid of it. And apparently Neil just got a phone call. And all it was, you bastard. Click. And I loved that clearly it had just got so into his head, he couldn't do what he thought he wanted to do. It's like, no, that story now wants to be told, and I have no choice but to go with it. And I loved that as a moment.
Yeah, that's great.
And how good was their friendship?
That one-liner is so great. Yeah. You bastard, and then just hangs up. I can see that. I can see them having that kind of relationship.
Absolutely. And clearly, I mean, it certainly became a really rich friendship over the years beyond that as well. So we have a lot to thank Neil for.
We do.
I am personally very grateful.
Yeah.
Not that, that Terry's science fiction wasn't also really good. Discworld was a bit magic, though. So
yeah,
he'd found that little pot of gold with Discworld, I think.
Absolutely. And I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful to Neil as well for the Good Omens TV show. I think Sir Terry would have been very happy.
I think he'd have been really proud of it. Really proud of it. And that it's been given the green light and it's now been filmed for the season 2. I'm so excited for that.
Oh, I am too.
So excited for that. Not least of which, because of course they've still got Michael Sheen and David Tennant.
Oh, I know. It wouldn't be the same.
Created something bigger and better than we got in Good Omens. I mean, I just loved that so much. That was just perfect. They were perfect. They could not have cast that any better for them.
Oh, I know. I feel the same way.
So, I watched the first season again not long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, just being so impressed by it.
Oh, yeah.
David Tennant went, how would I move if I was actually a snake as a person? And he just kind of did it. And you're like, dude, that's some serious swagger. He just owned it. And you're like, yeah. And Michael Sheen is this very sort of fussy sort of person. There aren't words, Chas. There just aren't words.
Yeah.
Although it does make me think of adaptations in general. And I know you enjoyed Sandman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I adored Sandman.
Amazing. Yeah. There were a lot of people nitpicked on it, and some of the disappointment was probably founded, I guess, but I felt like it was the best adaptation that we could possibly get for Sandman.
I think so.
It's graphic novels are a hard medium to adapt in the first place.
Yeah.
And Sandman especially, because it spans so many genres and epochs of time, and it's just you can't hardly do something like that justice. And not being able to get the rights to a lot of the DC characters that are in Sandman made it hard too.
I think that was probably their biggest hurdle, was how do we do that? How do we tell the story if we can't use these characters that we just, or if we want to, it's going to cost us our budget.
Right.
I think they did really well. Like, I was really impressed with how they managed to adapt that with as little change as they had to make. Really, given what they couldn't use. And I think the things that were added were brilliant. I loved the character of Gold. I thought she was just marvelous.
Oh, Gold was amazing, yes.
To have that transformation and to have that allowance for that transformation in the show was just, it was lovely. It was just a really lovely thing. And that's sort of the point of Sandman, I think, was it's transformational. That
Hmm.
dreams can do this. It can allow change. It can prompt a mindset to shift. And I just one of those messaging things. You're like, yeah, that's important.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah,
yeah, I know Kaiju K says Sandman episode one made her cry. Yeah, same here.
yeah.
It, in fact, there were several episodes in season
Oh,
one that
so
made me
beautiful.
cry.
Mm,
Um,
so beautiful. And again with the casting. I mean, they clearly knew. I mean, it was Neil's baby, so he knew what he wanted,
hmm.
and because he kept such a tight grip on it, he was able to go, no, that's the character I wrote. You don't look how the artist drew the character, but that's the character I wrote.
Hmm.
Because the woman they had playing Dream, and I can't remember her Death, sorry, I can't remember her name, but she was marvelous.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She was
Kirby.
just yes, Kirby.
Yeah, she's
Something.
fantastic.
She was one Baptiste. No, was that Desire? Might have been
Yeah,
Desire. But
yeah.
oh, they were just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. For them to actually find a transgender person to play Desire
Yes, I.
was perfect.
It was perfect. Yes, and I that's one of the complaints that I saw the most from some fans, and I'm like, how big a fan are you? Because in the comic, Desire is clearly non-binary.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
and
just
that's the point, was that they
yeah, that's
were
the point.
fluid,
Yeah.
that they could have presented either way. And yeah, that was exactly my response was, what were you reading that this is not working for you? Because this is it. Oh,
Yeah.
I loved, and the bloke they had playing the Corinthian,
Oh
he
wow,
looked like
he
the
did.
comic.
He
It
looked
was
the
like
part perfectly.
they lucked out huge with him.
And I was glad they expanded him into the villain for the
Mm.
season. I was really glad to see his expanded role. It fit well.
It added that level of unease
Hmm.
to some of the earlier episodes that
Oh
don't
boy,
necessarily carry it.
unease is a definitely
Mm.
good way to to describe him.
Because if you don't know what his eyes are, he still looks creepy. You're like, that
Oh
guy's
yeah,
creepy.
he looked
And then
very
when you get the reveal, and like, no, there,
yeah.
that was that's creepy.
And it's interesting because it's even more creepy in the comics.
It is.
Yeah. Um, there's just something that they can put on a page with the artwork that just makes it
Mm.
stand out.
And the artists did a
I
phenomenal
promise.
job. Hi. I mean, the artists through the comic work they were phenomenal. I mean, some of the images that they were able to put on the page that really viscerally hit you, what was
Yeah.
being said. And I think that's, as you say, the difficulty with that adaptation, because you're going from that surreal form of art into a very real environment.
Hmm.
And without a budget for massive CGI, you're stuck with what you can actually do.
Right.
And it doesn't always translate. So the fact that they did it as well as they did, just so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I was also pleasantly surprised that they did things that I thought that they might leave out. I was really pleasantly surprised to see that they included the African dream,
Yes.
because that would have been something that, most companies might have been, well, maybe we can just cut that out, but I'm because it involves it involves casting another person and a lot more like camera work and everything like that to make the transitions perfect.
Yeah.
And I was really glad that they put in the time and effort to do it.
I'm glad they did too. And I imagine it's something that Neil was adamant about. It's like, no,
Hmm.
that's a fundamental part of the Sandman, that he does appear to somebody of a different culture as part of their culture. That's the point.
Exactly.
And
Just
I
like he
appreciated
appears
that.
as a cat in the bonus episode.
Yeah, and I thought that was brilliant. That animation was just wonderful.
It was.
I really appreciated that bonus episode. It was great.
Yeah, I
So,
did too.
hmm,
Parameter
I,
hasn't read Sandman. Definitely highly recommend it to you, but Never Where an Ocean are top notch.
pretty good.
Definitely a fan there. Yeah, Sandman is it's really the series that put Neil Gaiman on the map.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's his
it
magnum
really
opus.
was, because he was a virtual unknown, and DC gave him a title.
They did.
What were the odds of that? And he just hit it out of the park almost immediately,
hmm
which is a bit of a bugger because Good Omens happened around the same time, and it meant that he was now too busy to do Good Omens too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I'm really hoping that we'll get a season 2. I'm surprised they haven't announced it yet.
It's got graphics. It's got graphics for season
Yeah,
2,
yeah, they
so
did do some
can't be
graphics.
far away. And I know they've wrapped up filming, so
Yeah. Oh, wait,
hopefully,
they
I
did
think
wrap
they
up
have.
filming for season 2
Pretty
of
sure.
Sandman?
I'm sorry, not Sandman. Good Omens. I'm
Oh,
talking.
I'm
Sandman.
sorry.
I don't think
Yeah,
they've had a go ahead.
yeah, that I was talking about Sandman, but I didn't specify, so
That's
that
all
was
right.
my bad.
Yeah, the
Um,
because I know they had to get like extraordinary viewership to get a season 2, and while I
no.
know they had number one in something like 8 countries for Sandman for their series dump. So, but I don't know if it's held. So, because it's an expensive one to produce, apparently, which is a shame because it's been
Mhm.
brilliant.
It
So
has been.
I'm hoping
Yeah,
they'll get a
I'm
season
really
2.
hoping to. Neil has said that that he retained the rights to take it somewhere else if they drop it.
Oh, excellent!
At
That's
least we
exciting.
know we'll probably get another Sandman season somewhere else, if not. But it's unfortunate
Or
because Netflix.
nobody's going to do a substandard version.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's for sure. He'll make sure of that.
Yep.
Um, I'm curious. I know he's got a Nancy Boys in the works over at Amazon too.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
So
just a marvel.
um,
And have you listened to the audio plays that they've come out with recently on
I
Audible?
have,
Oh, look,
yes,
Mike, there you go.
yeah,
Yep, they're
Minimum
really
Bartone,
good.
and I do too. I have not listened to Volume 3 yet. It just came out.
Yeah, it's not free though. The first 2 were free if you had the Audible membership.
Right.
This
Yeah, and
one
I have
isn't,
the
and I
Audible
haven't got a credit
membership,
spare.
so I did already use a credit, and I got it, and it's on my listen list, but I haven't listened to it yet. So,
Ah,
but it's
mine's still on a wish
fantastic.
list.
They did a really good job of adding in bits to the story that you
Yeah,
wouldn't get if you're not like reading it. So
that's right. They've
yeah,
linked it really, really, really cleverly that you
they
can
did.
follow it seamlessly. It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I've heard Sandman. I need to check out the adaptation, and Gaiman got me
Yeah,
interested with his comment. Yes, I agree. I agree, Austin. Yeah, Neil has
you get
been.
what you get.
Yeah, you get what you get. Neil has been a big proponent of cutting authors some slack.
And again, they don't work for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They get paid for a book. They deliver a book.
Right.
That
Yep,
end. It's
exactly.
just how it goes.
Yep, they're human. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm surprised people like Brandon Sanderson write as much as they do. I'm shocked. Uh, I remember too, George R. R. Martin. I watched an interview where George R. R. Martin interviewed Stephen King,
Ooh,
and he asked him, "How do you write so damn fast?"
hmm. Well,
So,
that was something that I took from the biography of Terry Pratchett. Was he approached it like a job. He did work hours, and he would go from his home to the chapel that was his writing building on site, and he would go there in the morning, and he would put, I think his daily goal was 4,000 words.
Okay.
And even if they were bad words, just type 4,000 lines, just write stuff. If some of it's good, then you keep that bit, but you keep writing and you just write every day. And that's what he did. And I think that's the same approach that Sanderson has, where he's got word goals and he's just going to get to those goals, and he lets you know how he's. I'm pretty sure he gives progress reports as well.
He does. Very detailed ones, in fact.
And I think that's the sort of thing that Terry would have done back in the day if there'd been a way for him to do that. And just hearing about his approach to writing, it made sense that by the time he was at the point of, 2, sometimes 3 books a year, of course, he's been writing for so long that he's polished these phrases. He's polished how to get from that pun to now it's a returning gag to now it's just ridiculously hilarious. He's polished it. He's playing now with words. It's not a job so much. It's a game. It's like, how can I say this the funniest way? Well, he knows, because he's just done it and done it and done it and done it. And I think that there are authors who would benefit from that sort of mindset of just sit down and write, even if it's rubbish. No one's going to read it. Just get into the habit of writing regularly.
Exactly.
And I liked learning too that he was a tinkerer. He liked to pull things apart and see how they worked. And I appreciate that, because I'm a bit like that. I'm like, well, I don't want to take that to a repair shop and have somebody charge me a per hour rate for something that maybe I can just do.
Yeah.
Just take the back off. Oh, look, a loose wire. I can attach that again. Problem solved. So.
Well, that's good. And tinkering works well when you translate it into writing. You tinker around with things and see how it fits. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Pramada asks here, I've never read a graphic novel and I'm mainly an ebook reader. Is Sandman a possible place to start, and will it work in ebook format? Yeah, Sandman, I would say, is a great place to start. As far as ebook format,
it will depend what you're using.
Yeah, if you're using a tablet, then yes, it will work good.
You'll want color, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
I think ultimately is what it's going to come down to. Is if you can get the color,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's the only
if you can
way
get a color panel, you'll be all right. Or to do it on your computer, on your laptop, so you've got a bigger screen. Color and as much space as you can. I know I've recently reread Sandman via ebook from my library, because when I first read them wasn't long after they came out, and my boyfriend at the time was reading them. So, of course, I was reading his copies. And then when that ended, they were his copies. So I didn't have copies.
Right.
But I have read it. And then the show was coming and I was like, oh, I'd love to reread that. And then it was a library situation. And I found reading them on my laptop was fine, because I could expand the image if I wanted to, or shrink in and kind of move around the page. So that was good. I don't know how it would have gone on a smaller tablet, but I'm sure it would work.
I tried it once, and it I tried it on a tablet and it was fine, because I do have the ebook versions as well. I tried it on my phone and it was awful, so definitely don't go that route. But
I think size.
Yeah, I think size makes a big difference, but definitely something that you can get color on, because it's as much a it's
a mood.
It is a mood. It's very artsy.
Very.
Yeah, very artsy.
It's astonishing.
So, color is the only way to experience that, I think. She saw that George R. Martin interview. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I just champion slow authors. Yeah, that I do too, because in most cases, the longer it takes, the better it will be.
That's always the hope, isn't it? That when it arrives finally, you're like, oh, it's a good one.
Yeah.
So this should mean that Winds of Winter is going to be the best book in existence.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Because let's
I'm
face it,
hoping
I'm
for that.
taking the time. I'll be if there's a queue, I'm in it when
Yeah.
that book releases. I say that like that's going to be a thing. It's not going to be a thing. I'll have it pre-ordered on my ebook. It will download at midnight, and I'm locked in.
Oh
I
yeah.
will I will have made sure I've got the right snacks. I'll have plenty of water. I'm going to be ready.
Yeah. Oh, same here. And as much as I don't like the fact that brand new ebooks tend to be sometimes more expensive than the physical book, I will do it anyway because I
Well, this is, again, an
have to have
advantage
it.
to living in New Zealand. Books are expensive and the ebooks are generally cheaper. So
Oh wow, that is
that
nice.
works for me.
That's
Because
true.
I will have pre-ordered and it will just, it'll be downloaded.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, e-readers are normally in black and white, so that does make it hard to read. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't gotten into manga yet, but I watch a lot of anime, so I probably should.
I struggle with new stuff in general. So it's probably
Yeah.
a way for me, given it's new stuff that I have to read backwards. That's, I don't know that my stroke adult brain can handle that just yet.
Yeah.
So just reading normally is proving a problem. So
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I get it. So, but besides um, Discworld and Realm of the Elderlings, what are some others that you're kind of starting on and working on?
I've actually I've just because I've just done some Stephen King again because it's October. That's what you
Uh-huh.
do in October as you read, the spooky ones.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I'm rereading. I've just reread The Hobbit along
Mm.
with Jimmy at the Fantasy Network,
Mm-hmm.
and next month we'll go into Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
But I did The Hobbit via audio
Oh
with
yes.
the new Andy Serkis narration.
Yeah.
Oh, so good!
Yeah. I
Just
love Andy Serkis in
oh,
general. So yeah, I'm excited to I have
it's
them,
so
but I haven't
exciting.
listened to them yet.
I for the first time ever, I paid attention to the songs because he sings it and he's got this amazing bass voice when he
Oh
sings as the
wow.
dwarves, and I was like, wow, that's amazing.
That's
And
great.
I literally the first time, which is almost embarrassing to say at my age, but probably the first time I've ever paid attention to the songs because I always intend to read the songs and I'm reading and I'm like, okay, reading, okay, and it's still going, and you're looking at, oh my god, there's pages of this. No, where's the next bit that's not a song? Um, but yeah, I was quite happy to play the songs with Andy singing them. That was great. So I'm looking forward to Fellowship. But other than that, what else? I don't really have much new on the go. I haven't picked up anything. No, it's a lie. I'm telling lies. I read a novella just the other day by Seanan Maguire. Seanan Maguire? Is it Seanan Maguire? I think it's Seanan Maguire. Because I just finished it. Yes, Seanan Maguire. Every Heart a Doorway from
Oh yeah,
the
I've heard of that series.
Wayward Children.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that. And it was only a novella, so it was like 170 pages.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Those are nice. Nice little palate cleansers.
yeah, and it was um, it's about children who have found doorways to other places. So it's Alice
Mm-hmm.
from Alice in Wonderland when she gets home, and suddenly everybody's like, what are you talking about? You just She's gone mad. And these families sending their children who have come back from portal worlds to
Mm-hmm.
a home that will make them normal, except that once they arrive, it's a home that goes, we know they're real. Let's
Mm-hmm.
teach you how to cope with the world as it is. And so you get these very odd children who have been to odd places, and how they've built a system around what kind of world it is, where sort of along one axis is logical and nonsense, and another axis is wicked and truthful.
Yeah.
So depending on what world you're in, sort of depends which dorm room you get put in. So because they can't put logical people in with the people from nonsense, because they try and kill each other eventually. It was just really lovely. So we met a handful of characters, and apparently the next book will be different characters. So the next one I read, I'm quite looking forward to. Just that sort of quirky, it's a quirky, sweet, light, magical series, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to the next one.
Great.
Yeah,
that sounds great. Promita was saying here, the Winds of Winter, Dream of Spring, and Fire and Blood too. Yeah, we've still got those on the horizon. So
I'm not going to pressure him for 3 books. I just want 1 for now.
Right, exactly.
It's okay, George. Just just get 1 out, whatever it is. Whether it's a Duncan Egg or the next Fire and Blood, I don't care.
Exactly. Yep, Dream of Spring and Neverwhere sequel. Yeah, I'm excited for the Neverwhere sequel whenever it comes.
I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, well, Neil announced it about 4 years ago, I think, and nothing's really been said much about it, but it's going to focus on the 7 sisters.
Ooh.
That's all I know about it so far, but he hasn't said much in recent years, and I don't know what's happening with it. It's interesting because he does not typically write sequels.
No, it's very unusual for him.
He's usually a standalone guy, so that will be interesting. But I'll read it, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, I understand the feeling. It's like, oh, my author has produced a thing. I need to read it.
Right.
Because that's all you need to know. My author has done a thing.
Author, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. If he writes a cookbook, I'll read it from front to back. I'll
absolutely.
Be there.
And that's just what you do when you find. Yep. When you find your author, you're like, no, this person speaks to me. I need to hear everything they have to say.
Yeah.
And Neil is one of those kind of writers that when it speaks to you, you're just like, he knows.
He does.
It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got a lot of recommendations for mangas here. Berserk. Oh yeah, that's stuff. The one. That's the one where the author passed away recently.
Oh, okay. Because that's the one I think Jimmy's working through at the minute. Berserk.
Oh yeah, I've heard. I heard that he was doing that. Yeah, it's really popular. It's supposed to be really good. Hunter x Hunter is okay. So
live.
Yeah. Or actually, I think it's Hunter x Hunter. I keep saying Hunter x Hunter, but it's Hunter x Hunter.
Okay.
It just has the X in there, but
here we go. That is a hot take. In that,
yeah,
for me,
that is a hot
Alan
take.
called it Grim Hope rather than Grim Dark.
Okay, I can see that.
That I could see, because I'm like, because there is a sense of hope, and we're aiming for better. Whereas Grim Dark, as far as I know, because I haven't read a lot of Grim Dark, but as far as I know, it's far more nihilistic about this is just horrible, and it's going to stay that way, and what can I do about it?
Much more bleak. Yeah. Sure.
Whereas there's certainly some horrifically dark things in Realm of the Eldling.
Oh, there are, for sure.
And I've only recently started remembering to trigger warning people. What was that? Sorry?
Oh, I was saying, I'm sure I've only scratched the surface because I've only recently finished Royal Assassin, so.
CHAS!
And absolutely loved it. By the way, it's my favorite book of the year so far. And
keep going.
Oh, I will.
It's so much there.
Once I read Assassin's Quest, we have to do a live stream and talk about it.
Absolutely.
and I'm planning to
Absolutely.
read it next month. I've got Quest down
Nice.
for next month.
So
So
I'm going to give you the same heads up I give to other people that when you go into Assassin's Quest, you have to know it's an old fashioned quest. There's a lot of traveling. And
okay,
if you aren't a fan of Fitz, you're going to get very tired of Fitz because there's a lot of Fitz.
a lot of it. Well,
And
I'm
imagine,
down. I like
if,
Fitz.
seriously, imagine a W, okay? The beginning of the book is a really high point, and then you're traveling and you're traveling and you're traveling. And then there's a high point because now there's things happening. And then you're traveling and you're traveling and you're traveling. And then the end happens and lots of things happen. These traveling bits are really long. So
Yeah,
if Fitz is not your favorite, keep going. Just
yeah.
keep
I know
going.
Dan did not like Assassin's Quest. He
A lot
did
of
not
people
like it.
struggle. A lot of people struggle.
Yeah.
But it's one of those books that if hi Vinny,
I've
if you
seen
get to the end, then you feel like you've been on a quest. It's part of the slog of that quest is intentional. You're
Yeah,
supposed to feel tired of walking. You're supposed to feel like, why are we even doing this even more? The futility of it. That's part of the point. Is that
right.
you're getting on each other's nerves, and so it is kind of partly deliberate. But I can
I'm sure it
absolutely
feels a
see
lot like a
people
family road trip, and after a while, you
a
start
little bit.
on each other's
Are
nerves.
we there yet? Yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna get to an are we
are
there
we
yet?
there yet?
Absolutely. But again, if you really like Fitz, you're not going to mind at all. You'll think the whole book is marvelous because you spend so much time with him. So, but not everybody does. So I
Yeah.
don't understand this myself. I mean, he's annoying and he's a bit stupid, but I do love him.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, he is. He's very naive,
very
uh,
naive.
and very yeah, he can be a bit stupid at times, but yeah, I like him too. I
Yeah.
those kind of characters endear me.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What anime do I like? Attack on Titan is a big one for me. I also very much like Vinland Saga, uh, um, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, uh, and one that a lot of people probably don't know about is called Gonkutsu. It's a sci-fi, a far future sci-fi retelling of the Count of Monte Cristo,
Oh,
and the art style is absolutely mind-boggling, but it's so good. And yeah, so check that one out. I think it's on Crunchyroll. If you subscribe to Crunchyroll, you can find Gonkutsu.
well,
So
there you go.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
That sounds
so
really intriguing.
so yeah, those are some of my favorites. I watched a few more. Mr. Osamatsu is just a really funny, silly day in the life of six. Is it six? Maybe it's only five brothers. Five identical twin brothers,
Whoosh,
and
that's a lot.
all the hijinks they get into in their daily lives. It's
A
funny.
lot. I imagine.
Yeah,
It's five
it's
of them.
really funny.
That's a lot. Yeah, it's just between Rothfuss theories.
Yay! I read cookbooks too. Not all at once. But I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have to break your heart, Paramita. I have read Name of the Wind, um, but I remember nothing. It, that was the one that solidified for me that something was wrong with my brain after I had my stroke because I read it and recall nothing.
Okay.
Nothing about it stood out to me. So, I'm not in any particular hurry to get back to it. Yeah, sorry.
I will definitely agree with her. I love Patrick Rothfuss's writing, and he's another one that gets a lot of flack, but I
Yeah.
for not releasing his book. But I love that series, and I would read it.
Wasn't it him that did a like a fundraiser or something. If they raised enough money, he was going to release.
He
Was it
did,
him?
yeah. He has a nonprofit organization called World Builders International,
Mm-hmm.
and he raises money for different causes with it, and yeah, and so he had put up a promise that if he reached a certain goal of money, that he would release the first chapter of Doors of Stone.
Okay.
I don't know if it's happened yet. I don't
No,
know
because
if it has, but he's gotten a lot of flack for not keeping his promise on that, and
yeah,
he'll release it when he's ready. I'll be there.
surely you don't make that sort of promise though if it's not ready to release.
That's true. Yeah, that is kind of
I mean, I would have thought.
oh,
I mean, I'm not judging Patrick. I'm not. I just find that strange.
I do too. Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
do too.
Yeah.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Mike. I just watched Mike's 210 sci-fi books.
Oh,
Holy crap!
I
The
saw
quality
that.
of that.
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet,
Oh,
but I added it to my watch list. So I'll be going back to watch it.
it's amazing. Like, amazing. Everybody, people get theme tunes. They get, there's there are singing and theme tunes and awesome graphics and great books. I was so impressed by that. I was like, wow. So yeah, anyone out there who hasn't seen Mike's 210 sci-fi books, check that out. It's immense. It's like
Yeah.
7 million hours long, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yes.
that's good. I will definitely look forward to getting to it. Sometimes I have to put the longer videos on my watch list and find
Yeah.
time to actually watch them.
Well, I literally watched it yesterday because I
Yeah.
had a big enough time window. My
Uh-huh.
brain was in the right place where I was like, yep, I will actually pay attention. And I had something where just my hands were going to be busy. So I was like, yes, I can totally just have that on and engage and not feel like I'm just sitting on my bum doing nothing for a couple of hours,
Hmm.
even though that's pretty much what I was doing. It didn't feel like,
Yeah,
just,
that's good.
yeah. So
Um,
it was a really great video.
Austin says here a song by some he hasn't read a
Ooh,
song by some fire, but
is there a reason?
Berserk
Lots of people, I
looks
suppose.
like Berserk influenced demons and Dark Souls and Bloodborne. And well, and I know George R. R. Martin wrote the lore for Elden Ring.
That's
So
right. Yes.
yeah, so so
He's been
many
keeping
good things
himself
and not
busy.
enough time. I sat down to play Elden Ring and I love it, but
Yeah.
I just don't have the time to get anywhere. It's such a massive and frankly uh, difficult game. It's a pain in the ass sometimes, and I just can't.
It's one of those things. I mean, I don't game as a general rule,
Yeah.
but I did discover a couple of weeks ago that it's a game I did used to play way back when on my massively modern Windows 7 computer, Mist, which is a problem-solving game in that there are no people. You're just a viewpoint behind a camera, and you're finding stuff. You don't
Hmm.
know what the aim is. You're just sort of wandering around, finding stuff, decoding stuff, and you end up with a whole bunch of clues. And you're like, I have
Hmm.
clues. I don't know what they're for. And it starts to fall into place. And you're like, I know, I have a clue for this that would fit this situation. And you start solving the problems. And I played it years ago and loved it. And I found out just the other week that they've upgraded up whatever they needed to do to it to make it run on modern machines.
Oh
And I
wow.
got it on Steam, and I've probably played about 20 hours of it, which for me is outrageous in the last week. I love it so
Wow.
much. I'm like, oh,
And what was it called again?
Mist. It's
Myth.
real
Oh
mist,
yeah.
MYST.
I did hear that. Yeah.
And
Um,
it's so
I used
great.
to I used to play the Myth games. It just didn't click with me,
Yeah. I just,
and then I'm like,
because
wait a
there's
minute.
no stakes, it's zero stakes. It's
Oh yeah,
literally just puzzle solving.
yeah,
And I love it
yeah.
because you don't really know what you're solving until
Right.
you solve it. And you're like, okay, nice.
Yeah,
Next puzzle.
the Myst games were really amazing. In fact, they released a version for iPads as well
Really?
for tablets. Yeah,
It could well be the same one because I
it
stopped
could
looking
be.
for it for
Yeah,
years and discovered that it had been out for a while. Like I want to say 2018, 2017. This version's been out for a while. So I've just kind of thrown myself back in. And so I've got all my notes and maps,
yeah. Oh,
my
that's
little
good.
hand drawn maps of things.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that if it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because you
it's,
do kind of need maps for those games to kind of
I
figure
mean,
out
it's an
where.
old sort of game. It doesn't let you jump from this point to that point. Once you've been to
Right.
that point once, you actually have to go along the path back to that point. So
Mhm.
you need to figure out the quickest way because you might have to go back there 3 or 4 times.
That's for
Well,
sure.
that's really boring. So you just get really good at clicking your way through. Yep, click.
You do.
Yeah. So, but I have been enjoying it.
Well, I'm glad we can
Yay!
make your day better, Austin. Yeah,
Welcome to
glad
our
you,
days.
yeah, glad you're here.
Absolutely. So,
And I do want to say if I miss some of the comments, it does happen sometimes. Sorry about that, but I'll try to get to most of the comments if I can. So
that's
yeah,
right. It's um, multitasking.
yes,
This is
exactly.
this is the other
Multitask.
side of broken brain. It's like there's a word. I know there's a word. Yeah. So yes,
Right.
it's so.
Oh
But yes,
yeah.
so I've been reading short stories and playing Mist, and for my book journal, I've got a whole heap of stickers. I randomly buy
Mm.
stickers. It's a problem. I have a lot of stickers, and they were just starting to annoy me. So I decided yesterday I was going to make some boxes. So I've been making little paper boxes for my stickers.
Oh, that's
So
great.
so those are my flags. I've got a little box for heart stickers and a little box for flower stickers. So
So do you use them as rewards for once you finish a book, or?
no, they just decorate my pages
Oh, okay.
because I was told I was told when I was young I wasn't good at art. So I told myself for most of my life that I'm not good at art
Oh man.
and decided there's a thread in Sarah's Discord, Sarah reads, where people show their book journaling. And I raved about somebody's and they said, yeah, I copied it out of a colouring book. And my brain went, oh, I can do that. And I kind of took off from there. And yeah, so now my book journal is my art expression. So I've done a lot of Discworld this year, a lot of Discworld images from this year.
Oh,
And
that's great.
I'm really proud of one of them. I'm going to show you.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, do.
was for my October quote because they get a quote every month, and I'm so proud
Real
of it
good.
because I'm not an artist, but I did it and it was all arty. Oh, now I can't find it.
Okay, Austin, I'm typing the name of the Count of Monte Cristo manga or anime in the
Oh,
chat right now for you.
there we
Okay,
go.
let's see. Oh, wow.
I'm
Ooh,
so proud
I
of
love
it.
that. Yeah.
That's Nanny saying I can do next Tuesday.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of that
Yeah, yeah,
because I had to figure out how to get the fire.
yeah, I would be
Very
proud
proud
of
of it.
that too.
So yeah,
Yeah,
but
that
my individual pages do like just things like that. So there's lots of stickers everywhere, and so I haven't necessarily had to draw anything,
yeah.
but there'll be a colour theme, and so I'll have all the orange and golds, or all my
Mhm.
pinks or something. So I have lots of stickers because you have to have options.
Exactly.
But it's meant that I now have hundreds of stickers because I can't resist. Now I have a reason to buy them, so I do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
decorate your book journal. Yeah, for
like
sure.
I've got enough stickers that I don't need to buy any more stickers for a long time. Is that going to stop me buying stickers? Highly unlikely.
Probably not. It's kind of like book buying. Will we ever stop buying books? Probably not.
No. This is part of our identity, Jazz.
It
What is your
is.
favourite non-Reynolds book? Am I allowed to? Well,
You're allowed to pick whatever you want.
I was just going to say, I would then have to pick a Discworld book. And I thought, well, how do I choose about all my Discworld books? I'm actually going to go with Good Omens. I love Good Omens.
Oh,
I've read it a lot.
Good pick.
I love it. And I've bought it so many times because I lend it to people. And lending books isn't a thing. You're giving them away. I have given away so many copies of Good Omens because I'm like, no, it's brilliant. Have one.
Right.
I can always buy another one. Go, have it. Strike while the iron is hot. And yeah, I've given away so many copies. It's just such a great book. I love it. But it's becoming a little less relevant though, which is making me sad.
A little bit, yeah. I think the show has made it more relevant, but yeah, the book itself is a little bit less relevant for sure.
Yeah, it's just starting to date itself a little.
A little bit, yeah. I have the illustrated version of it, and I absolutely love it.
I'm jealous.
Yeah,
I'm like properly jealous.
let me see if I can. Let me see if I can snag it here.
Yeah, show me some of the illustrations. Oh,
let's see.
Because it's so good. One thing I did miss from the adaptation was the other 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Oh, I did
with CHAS. I missed them. They were great, but I see why they skipped it. But
I can too. Yeah, they can't put in everything, but
no.
Well, let's see. So here it is.
There's I like that cover.
I do too. And one of my favorite things is they pretty much patterned the illustrations of Crowley and Aziraphale after David Tennant and Michael Sheen. So
that's a bit glorious.
It is, yeah. And let's see.
Oh, yeah. I'm very jealous.
It's a gorgeous book.
So jealous.
Let me see where.
Pretty.
I think I'm sure there's one of with Michael.
Oh, there's bound to be. He was so great.
Oh yeah, there's Death.
See, there you go.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I'm sure there's one for.
That's awesome.
No, that's not him. But yeah, he's in here somewhere, I'm sure.
That's a beautiful copy. That really is. Was that a treat for yourself? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, it was a nice little treat. It's hard to imagine reading this copy because I don't want to damage it, but
no, books should be loved. That's what they're for.
That's right.
And so you read them and then they look loved because somebody's read them and they've got the slightly worn edge to them, and that's how they should look. In my mind. Good. I mean, honestly. Clean your eyes and Kev! Stop trying to wind me up, Kev. Come on. It's just...
Sorry, Half-Fate.
It's just winding me up now. Sod.
He knows I love it. Backwards. Interesting.
Well, they find it hilarious that I get so wound up with people who want to start with wife ships. Mm-hmm. It's like, and Kev's the one that just finds that the funniest, I think. Because I don't like it when people want to start with life ships and lose my mind a little bit. So
right.
So yes, I get teased about that. But that's okay. I'm allowed to be teased about that because I can.
So Barometer recommends the same 5 or 6 books to everyone.
I have to admit, I'm getting better at trying to assess whether or not what I want to recommend is actually something that they need recommending. because if they're not likely to want to read it, I'm wasting my breath. So there's definitely batches of books that I only recommend to some people, and other batches of books that I recommend to different groups. If I'm talking to a romance crowd, I'll recommend an author I think that does historical romance really well. If I'm talking to someone who reads paranormal fantasy, there's an author that does that really well. So I'm getting better at kind of trying to match the books I want to push to the people who want to read them. So hopefully I'm getting better at that.
Yeah, I'm trying to branch out as well. I tend to recommend a lot of Neil Gaiman.
Well, it is great.
And I found that Paramita and I have quite a bit of the similar taste. So she and I would probably be recommending the same ones. Oh my, that sounds like a very odd reading order, but
okay, I'm not down with this reading order. I've got to say, not down with that. Although I did encounter a person in one of the other Discords I'm a part of who might break the Wheel of Time community.
Yeah.
Because they skipped 6 books.
Yeah.
They went from books 1 to 6 and then read 12.
Yeah.
And apparently they were fine with that. I'm good with that. Yeah. And they had a good time and they thought really highly of that book. And I'm like, that actually sounds like a way to go, given that most Wheel of Time readers seem to say that those books are hard going anyway.
Yeah, they do. So, I know a lot of people. I talked with one person that said that they were going to go and look up the Cliff's Notes versions for books and then go back and read 12, 13, and 14.
Yeah. And most of the time as a book reader, that would make me angry. I'd be like,
right.
No,
oh, yeah.
That is not allowed.
Yeah.
But with everything I've heard about Wheel of Time, and that includes since I've been on BookTube, from people who love Wheel of Time, there are books that maybe could be skipped.
Yeah.
So,
very true.
Yeah, but I haven't read Wheel of Time, so I don't know. So.
Yeah, I read the first couple of books, and I said I DNF'd it, but I technically just shelved it for now. I might go back to it. So,
well, Yolene has a beautiful thing to say about that. The only books you ever technically DNF are the ones that you haven't finished reading before you die. Everything else you've just put down for a while.
Right. I like that.
And I thought, I love that.
I do too. I like that. I'm gonna put that on my
It's not a DNF. I've just put it down.
Remind myself of that. Yeah, I liked it.
Because you might go back to it one day.
Exactly.
One day you'll be a different person and the book might speak to you.
Very true.
So who knows? But yes, it did
Austin
thrill me rather.
encouraging me to keep up with Elden Ring, so that's good. Maybe I'll get on stream with it one of these days, or not stream, on Twitch with it one of these days. Yeah. I do have a Twitch account, although I've only recently started using. I'm a very casual video gamer. Very casual. I don't. I don't do a whole lot with it. Like I used to be a huge video gamer as a kid, but now I'm not. I'm more into books and shows.
Yeah,
and
I'm a books person.
I think my heart rate gets up with too intense of a game.
We could never afford a gaming console, and then when I got a computer, I had babies, and it was just I couldn't play anything that was that attention hungry. So that's why I missed worked, because if I had half an hour, I could try and work on a puzzle. And of course, then you get to a point where, you're in your 30s and you've never played a computer game. And you're like, whoa, that is a lot. Where do you even start? I mean, you're like, crikey, Nora, there's so much. And you watch I go and sit for a friend's children and they're like, yeah, look at this on Fallout. And I'm like, what? And I don't even know how they're moving. And they're just like, and I'm like, how are you taking in all of that information on the screen? What does it even mean? I felt really old.
Oh, I would
like
have too, Derri.
really old.
Believe
It's
me.
like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm that person. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have the capacity for that. Well, that's not true. I probably do have the capacity, but I haven't ever used that part of my brain. So
Hmm.
it was just really overwhelming, the amount of data that was on the screen. I was just like, whoa, how do you even? And then move so quickly through the game.
Yeah.
I'm watching an 11-year-old. Clearly, it's something that people are capable of,
Yeah. Right.
but it blew my mind.
Yeah. It would me too. Yeah. I can't get through games that quickly like a lot of the younger generation can.
Oh, it's a skill. I was like,
It is.
wow, just taking in that many. Yes, I knew I was going to cry. I knew I would. I had a handkerchief ready. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get through this without crying. I said as
Yeah.
much to Raph, and he said, that's all right, because I might cry too. I was like, that's all right. We can all cry together. So, yeah, we did it through
Tina approves of your sticker buying.
crying. Yeah, I have literal stacks, just random piles of washi tape, just, you know, because I haven't quite worked out how I want to store them yet. I've got a big basket of them. It's a problem. I have one book journal, and I have enough stuff here to do many.
Yeah.
Um, but I have options. Options is good.
Absolutely. It's always good to have lots of options.
Yeah,
I'm a mood reader, so I need lots of options.
yeah, absolutely. Options.
um,
Options is the key.
it is. I do recommend Slow Regard. Yeah. So for anyone watching, that's the Slow Regard of Silent Things. It's a novella that is set in the world of the King Killer Chronicles, and I would almost say that that's my favorite book in the series
Okay.
because Ari is one of my favorite characters in that series. So it's all about her. So yeah,
Nice.
I highly recommend Slow Regarded Silent Things. Yeah, it's it felt very, how would I say, it felt reminiscent a little bit of Alice in Wonderland because
Ooh,
she's going through her home and just she personifies all the inanimate objects in her home and gives them names and
okay.
things like that. And
Okay,
it
that's a bit
and the way
magical.
she did it, it reminded me of Alice in Wonderland with the tarts that said "Eat me" and uh,
Yeah.
drinks that said "Drink me" and things like that. It was just very whimsical.
Hmm,
So
I like that.
yeah, it's a
That
good
might be worth having a look at. Definitely. Because I'm
yeah.
getting better at reading new things. I am getting better. And I'm thanking AP Canavan over on A Critical Dragon for that. He and
Yeah.
Philip talk about different ways to read, where they talk
Hmm.
about close reading and line by line analysis. And I haven't gone that extreme, but I have got better at going. I can't just pick up a book and just zoom through it like I used to because it
Hmm.
falls straight back out again. So I've got to learn to pay more focused attention. So a new book takes me quite a long time to read because I have to really focus on it like I'm at school and like I'm
Right.
properly paying attention to the words. Um, but I'm getting better at reading new books. Oh, hey, puss. Yeah, so I'm getting better, and the aim long term is to get good enough that I might attempt Malazan because I want to be part of that conversation really badly. They sound like
Yeah.
really good books. I want to read them.
I want to be part of it too. I'm with you. And
Yeah.
I read the first two books and I started Memories of Ice, the third book.
Hmm.
And I'm not DNFing it, but I just had to set it down for a bit.
Yeah.
It's so much to process. It really
Yeah.
is. So
And that's why I'm like, okay, no, I actually genuinely want to work on this. I want to be able to take in new reads again, especially since finding BookTube and all of these
oh
people who
yeah.
read the same sort of things that I find joy in. So now I'm aware of all of the things I'm missing out on. Seriously, the FOMO is strong. It's
Oh yeah, the
really
FOMO is
strong.
definitely strong, especially when
Because
you're
I
in the
just
book
can't go and
community.
read them. I actually have to work at reading them. It's like, is it going to be worth it? I need to
Mhm.
know. I'm pretty sure Malazan is worth it, but that's going to take some time getting to that point where I can take it on.
Yeah,
But I
I'm
really
sure
want to.
it's worth reading. Well, I know it is.
Yeah.
The first book was amazing. The second book was a tough read for me, but I made it through and I enjoyed it. And then it's just a matter of doing the Memories of Ice
Mm.
and progressing through the series. And I tried the audiobook, but
Oh, I think that would be so confusing.
yeah, I could not do the audiobook, and I didn't like the
Mm.
narrator. So
Oh, that makes a big difference.
yeah, that didn't work
That
for me.
makes a
But it's
big difference. And I look at the people
you're
that I
welcome.
watch, that I've encountered on BookTube, and the people I've spoken to in the various discords I'm part of, and the
Mhm,
variety of people who like Malazan. I'm like,
mhm,
there is clearly so much of worth in this series that it's probably the one series I genuinely feel I'm missing out on. It's like,
mm.
no, I really want to be part of that. So
Yeah,
I,
I do too.
I'm working
And I
on it.
felt that way about Wheel of Time as well, and so that's why I was really disappointed
Oh,
to
okay.
not continue with Wheel of Time, but it just wasn't. I just wasn't feeling it, so I didn't.
No,
And
and that's how it goes. I
yeah,
mean, I've never felt the need to read Wheel of Time. I've always had the sense that it's doing something that
hmm
fantasy just does. Um, it didn't feel like it was really trying to do something new. It was just trying to be good at doing something different within the known. So I don't feel that I'm necessarily missing out on Wheel of Time. Whereas I
hmm
know that Book of the Fallen has a different sort of scope, and I know that it's addressing very different things, and the challenge of it really appeals to me on an
hmm
intellectual level. It's just a pain in the ass that it's also going to be a challenge for me just to read it. So
yeah, and
it's
it's
yeah,
definitely a different writing style to get used to.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I definitely want to get into that eventually. But I have to work my way up to that. So there's going to be I'm going to have to really push myself in the next year or so and try and really regain that skill. And I think
mhm,
that once I do, it'll just be then a question of speed and just getting better at it. And I
yeah.
can't see that taking me long because reading is such a fundamental part, really, of who I am. So it's just
Absolutely. I feel the same way, Derry.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we'll get there. You should skip 15.
Yeah, skip all 15. Yeah, there we go. I like
There
that.
are going to be people who are not happy about that, Kev.
Skipping 6 is lightweight. I love it.
I was impressed with the ball's move of it. I was like, dude,
Right.
and you just admitted to that.
Ooh, gravestone design. I like that idea, Fina. We on our gravestone we can have all the books that we didn't finish in our lifetime.
Hey, I don't want a monument. Just a tombstone will be fine.
Right.
Author names, maybe. It'll be shorter in author names,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Actually, now I think about it, maybe not. Never
Or I'm
mind.
gonna quit
But
after book 2. Yeah, that was
yeah,
the same here. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that it's that. Yeah, I've read this. Maybe not the story specifically, but this is a thing that I've read.
Mhm.
I've read this story before. I know how this is going to go. However many tropes they think they're subverting, or it's like it's still going to go that way. So,
Right.
but I really do sense that that's not what's going to happen with Malazan. I think that that's properly going to twist the way I think a story should be told. So,
Right. I feel like it definitely does what little I've read of it so far.
hmm,
It's a very different way to tell a story. I think
yeah,
it's a good way, but it definitely takes a little getting used to.
hmm. So
Yeah.
I am really looking forward to it, and I'm scared that I'm kind of making it harder for myself, and I'm making it a bigger issue than it is. But I
hmm
also don't want to start it and then feel disappointed in myself that I can't do it. So,
hmm
I have to go with slightly more difficult books each month, next year, I think, and just slowly pick up that difficulty level until I figure I'm where I need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like we got a fan of Malazan here.
Oh, and that's the thing. The number of people, particularly on Jimmy's Discord, because I'm a part of that Discord. It's a lovely community in there. I know I've got people who will help me through that. If I start, I've got a really good support group of people who will explain what's happening if I ask. So, plus there's so many beautiful conversations on YouTube now that I haven't been able to watch because I haven't read the books with people like Joanna and Philip Chase and I've missed out on all of them. And I'm like,
yeah, I've got quite a lot as well where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to come back to that after I read the book.
You know, I mean, AP at the Critical Dragon's got a whole playlist of like really broken down chapters and prologues, and like, it's content I want to be able to do.
Yeah,
I'll get there. I will get there. So,
Parameter DNF grown to the moon 25 to 30%.
Permission in the forward.
He does. Yep.
Well, there you go. There you go. So I'll pick it up. I mean, nice.
Oh yeah.
Art levels even.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Bloodborne initially.
A beautiful game. Hey.
Didn't put me off, but
oh really?
I probably will go back to it at some point. It didn't put me off. I mean, the game design was beautiful, but the difficulty, really put me off.
That's okay.
Yeah. So let's see. You can't audiobook Malazan
at all. Okay.
I would agree with that. I feel like the structure, because oftentimes with Malazan, it will switch to another character without a whole lot of indication. It's easier to pick it up in the book, but if you're listening to the audiobook, it will transition to another character, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what happened? So that was one of the things that bothered me about the book, other than the narrator.
That's often a problem with any story that's got internal monologue. And you never know if it's an internal voice or an external voice that they're using at any given time. And you're like, did they say that or did they just think that?
Right.
And you don't always get told.
Exactly. You don't. Yeah. And I definitely recommend reading Malazan over audiobook for sure. Well, even though audiobook's technically reading too, I firmly believe that, but it's not as easy.
It's a different experience.
It is a different experience.
And I was talking to Raph about it. It must be horribly limiting to not have access to both forms. I mean, he's very limited to what books are released on audio in his zone, because there are audiobooks he doesn't have access to. And that was just like, oh my God, there are so many amazing books that Raph would get so much value from he literally has no access to. And so I have told him that if he wants to do Realm of the Elderlings, I will personally narrate a version for him for the versions that I think have awful narration. All right, I'm happy to just record one for you, Raph. Don't worry.
Oh, that's
I'm used to bad narration. I'm like, it's really bad. There are parts of it that are really bad. So,
Malazan after A Song by Some Fire next year. Austin's excited to talk to you about that.
Because I have read A Song by Some Fire, so I do have input I can have with that. I can be part of that conversation, which is fabulous.
Yep, and I've read it too. We can have one big powwow.
Oh yes. On that note, did you watch House of Power?
House of the Dragon?
Sorry, House of the Dragon.
Yes.
Rings of Power, getting them too mixed up. House of the Dragon.
Yeah, and I like Rings of Power too.
I just saw your video on that before I came over.
House of the Dragon is by far my favorite of the two, though.
They're very different. I mean,
they are. Yeah, very different. Clearly,
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, clearly George R. R. Martin's world is very grimdark, and Lord of the Rings is not.
It's far more convoluted as well. I mean, there's far more intricacy in
I like that intricacy.
House of the Dragon.
That's for
It,
sure.
it intertwines a lot, and it's so, I'm
The
really
this
enjoying it.
last episode, and I won't do spoilers for it, but this last episode was an absolute powerhouse. The ending,
Yeah, I loved it.
I was just I was literally sitting on my sofa and I was cheering. I'm like, yes.
It was quite funny because I mean, I've read Fire and Blood, and I've
Mhm.
been rereading it recently because somebody else has got a chat happening with that next week, I think. So I better get a move on. But so it's all quite fresh in my mind. And so I had a pretty good idea what the episode was going to be about, given the name of the episode. I was like, okay, I know what's coming. 6 minutes in, I'm doing this.
I know, right? Yes.
For like 20 minutes, I couldn't move my hands. I was like, oh my God. It did what I knew was going to happen, but
Hmm.
in a way I wasn't expecting. And it was such a shock. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. And it just kind of rolled along, and it was glorious. I love when a show can do that, where it can just make your
Oh,
brain
me
stop
too.
because you actually are so in it.
Hmm.
You're not thinking about it anymore. You're just in it.
Yes.
And oh, so good. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And,
It was. And I've heard that the long-term plan is once they finish the Dance of the Dragons, if they have, if it keeps getting renewed, that they are going to do Aegon's Conquest, and I am so
mm,
happy. I am
I
so happy.
love I love the idea that they're going to use it like an anthology title.
Yes,
So
I do too.
a bit like A Song of Ice and Fire is all of the books in that series.
Hmm.
That House of the Dragon is the Targaryens. At whatever point in history they choose to pull from, because
Hmm.
you could even at some point go to right back to the Doom, and the family dream that saw them escape that. That
Yes.
would have been really political at the time, and I imagine, a really rich story that could be told there. So there's certainly richness, even at the very fringes of the books that we've got, that could actually be awesome. And then you look at what we did get in Fire and Blood, as you say, with
Hmm.
the conquest. You've got all of Jaehaerys's reign that
Hmm.
had just finished for the beginning of House of the Dragon. A
Right.
lot of stuff happened there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Maegor the Cruel, all of these things.
Oh, Megor the Cruel.
Or,
That would be a magnificent storyline to see adapted.
yeah, well, even just the power play between Visenya and the wives, and you're just like, oh, so much there,
Hmm.
because you have a sense that there's so much there, but the book doesn't necessarily tell you what's there. Your own understanding of human nature tells you there's a lot there,
Right.
because you just get told, you know, this one that she didn't like and wasn't impressed by was really sick and no one could fix him. Then she took over and he got better. You're
Yeah.
like, really? Sounds strange. Oh, and then he died.
Yep.
Convenient. There's a
Right.
story there. There's a story there
Yes.
that could play out on screen really well.
It could.
So I'm loving the idea that this House of the Dragon title, this House of the Dragon concept, can potentially wrap around all of this
Yes.
richness of story. Oh, it's tempting. It's like being shown the warehouse of yumminess of snack foods, and you're like, what would you like now? Oh, you had that yummy delicious thing. Have another yummy delicious thing.
Right.
That's what House of the Dragon feels like. It's like, I'm getting the biggest treat right now, and there's gonna be more.
Yes, I know. I
So
and
exciting.
I love so I of course I love dragons and I
Mm.
like big dragons
Mm.
and I really like Vagar, but I have or wait, let's see. Is that
Because Vagar is the really old one
yeah,
who
okay,
now
that
is,
is the one I'm thinking of then.
yep.
So but the one I want to see Balerion the Black Dread.
And for that, we need to go to Aegon's Conquest.
Yeah, we have to go to
So
Aegon's Conquest because that
Well, that's
Not,
Balerian's moment, really. We all want to
yeah,
see Balerian take on Harrenhal, really. That's
yeah,
really it, isn't it? That's what we
yeah.
really want to see.
That's
We
what we
want to
want
see
to
him
see.
melt a castle.
Exactly.
That's what we
That
want,
is
really.
exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
have enjoyed the fact that they've, and it was an issue for George that he had it in the contract that the dragons look different. They're different from each other. They're
Hmm.
different in size. They're different in color. They're structured differently. I
Hmm.
love that. I
I do
love that
too.
Caraxes is long and he has those really funky kind of leg wings on his back
Hmm.
legs, and that you've got Syrax is kind of almost squat in comparison. She's not as long. She's
Yeah.
not as long in the body. And then you look at Vagar and she's just immense. And she looks old. And who would have thought you had to figure out how a dragon's going to look when they're old? But they did because they made one look old.
Yeah.
And then I liked what we saw of Melis. I mean, we only really saw her face, but I liked what I saw of Melis. She was pretty. I like
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
colour.
She was.
And you think of all the dragons we've still got to come. I mean, we've got Quicksilver and Vermithor and Dreamfire, and so
I'm
looking
looking forward to
forward.
seeing Greenfire.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
Just
There are.
so it's gonna be yeah. I'm thrilled with what they've been able to do.
I
I
am
really am.
too, and I feel like they've made a lot of fans who were so skeptical coming into it after what happened with Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
and I'm in the minority because even though the ending of Game of Thrones was not necessarily what we wanted, I still liked it. And but that I'm in the minority with that, and I'm
Mm.
okay. But I still think House of the Dragon is far leagues beyond
Oh,
what
it's
what the
leaps and
last few
bounds.
seasons of
Yeah.
Game of Thrones were. Yeah,
God, yeah.
by far.
I think because they've gone to what made Game of Thrones so good. And
Yes.
when you're good enough, you can hold people through seasons that aren't as great.
Hmm.
But those seasons that were fantastic, that were really fantastic, were the ones that drew you in because there was infighting and there was political intrigue and there was manipulation things going on that some people knew and some people didn't, and all of those things. That's what grabbed you and gripped you, that political byplay.
Hmm.
And they're doing that in House of the Dragon. You're getting
Yeah.
that and dragons. Whereas with Game of Thrones, that it was an either or kind of thing. You either
Hmm.
had an episode that was very dialogue heavy, or you had an episode with dragons, and the balance shifted too far one way, to my opinion, as the seasons went on.
Hmm.
But House of the Dragon has got both from the beginning, and it's amazing. I
It
am
is.
loving it so much, and it's been cast just magnificently. They got the young
Yeah,
characters. I mean, they were mind blowing. Those young girls playing
they
Alicent
were.
and Rhaenyra, and I thought, how are they going to transition away from these girls? These are amazing.
Yes,
They're just such amazing actors. And
they
within
are.
5 minutes of that episode 6, I think it was,
Hmm.
it's like they didn't even exist. They had completely merged into one character.
Hmm.
And no, that's just who we're following now.
Yeah,
That I
it
had to
felt
remind
seamless.
myself that they were played by other people just last
Yeah.
week
Uh-huh. Yeah,
because they just got it right. They've done a really good job.
they have.
Really good job. I mean, Paddy Considine,
Oh,
that
he was
episode. Oh my God.
magnificent.
Episode
He
8. If he doesn't get a freaking Emmy for that, there is something wrong.
he had such a wide range,
Oh,
uh, and to be able to play a character that is constantly aging throughout the series,
yeah.
and to portray a character that is in his final stages of life the way he did was
Yeah.
just absolutely brilliant. And the power when he went to the throne room,
I
uh,
it
and
just you talking about it then, I've got goosebumps down both
oh,
legs.
that
I
was
oh, it
magnificent.
really seriously goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because it was I say this about Robin Hobb, that good writing can hook onto your heart and just pull.
Yes.
Where you don't even notice, you don't recognize how they're doing it, but you feel it and you're like, wow. And acting, he nailed that. He had you from the minute you saw him in the doorway, and you're like, wow. And he just captured your attention and held it all the way as he walked. And it was a long scene as he walked, through the throne room. It was so powerful that no, I don't want assistance. I can do this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll lean on my brother because he's offered a shoulder. That was beautiful. I almost cried. Got a bit choked up.
I did actually because
that brotherly bond was so strong.
Mending the bond there.
Yeah. And there was so much respect being shown because Damon was at no point about, look at me, I'm great, I can help him. He was like, no, this is my brother and he's my king and I'm going to support him to his throne. Mm-hmm. Because I've never actually actively tried to take this off him. This is his throne.
Yeah.
And there was no dialogue. And it was so good.
Yeah.
It was just so good.
And the family meal?
That was beautiful. That was really well done.
That was exquisite as well.
I did hear an interesting theory. Somebody said, I wonder if it was real or was it in his head? Was he taking moments out of context and telling himself that it was this lovely family meal? Because the mood did shift immediately when he left the room. And I might rewatch. I say that like I might not. I'm totally going to rewatch. I'm going to rewatch, and I'm going to think that when I watch it, when I get to that scene, and just see if it works, because I think it might.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made the scene sit differently for me when I heard that, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, that does put a different spin on it. I might have to check that one out as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to rewatch that.
Yeah. Did you see I think it was a tweet that Paddy Considine put out after that final episode he was in?
I did.
He was basically thanking the actress who played his first wife, Emma, and saying that was the key to my character. That all of everything he did was grief for his first wife. He never sought treatment for his illness because he felt he deserved to suffer for making the choice that got her killed. And that it was such a peaceful thing for him to finally get back to Emma. And I cried reading the tweet. I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Because it worked. That was how he played it. And it was perfect.
Yes.
Dude. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. It shows you it doesn't matter sometimes what the script does or how good your directors are or your set director or your set dresser or the CGI dragons. If you've got a good actor, they can make walking from point A to point B really emotional with no words.
Man. Yeah, absolutely.
Or running with a sword, as Damon showed us in
episode running with a sword,
3, I think.
Oh man,
with no dialogue.
That episode on the Stepstones, that was
amazing,
magnificent. Yes.
I mean, the quality of that show, man.
I already liked Damon, but after that episode, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's my boy. I want more of Damon right there.
Oh, I'm a total Damon stan for sure. And and somebody was saying, it was one of the directors going, I don't know why people like him. He does horrible things. And we show him doing horrible things. And I think for me, it's because he's a villain who owns it. He's like, yeah, I'm a villain. I'm not trying to not be a villain. And he does it with swagger. He just kind of owns it. I'm like, yeah, I'm there for that. I'm totally there for that. So they're doing so well in redefining these characters where they haven't really changed anything from Fire and Blood, because you don't get character in Fire and Blood. You get moments. This is what this person did. This is what that person did. This was the outcome. You don't actually see it happening. You don't get a feel for where people were emotionally. And the show is giving up that to us in a way that doesn't change that that person did that and that person did that and that was the outcome, but it changes it massively because with context, it means something different.
It does.
And I just think they're doing it. I mean, I liked Aemond as being an interesting character. It's like, that's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Episode 9, I was like, no, I actually think I like Aemond. I actually think I like him.
Yeah, I like
I'm not just
Aemond a lot.
interested by him, but I think I like him. Yeah. Helena is marvelous.
Yes, she is.
I mean, and again, what lines she's had has almost completely been gibberish, but she's made herself likable with that.
Yeah,
I think the show is doing a really good job. Ultimately,
I think it is too. We're making Austin here excited for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The director is really fantastic, and I think the good thing is it's a combination of two different styles for different episodes. So Miguel Sapochnik directs a few of them, and then and then I forget what the other guy's name is, but he does a few of them as well.
Well, the showrunners, I mean, Miguel Sapochnik is leaving after season 1, and that's not a problem. It's like, no, sweet. There's noise that he might be a little bit involved with the Jon Snow. So that's not been confirmed, but that's the
fear. He's going to be a consultant on season 2 of House of the Dragon as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Ryan Condal, which I didn't know until the episode 3, episode 4. But Ryan Condal, he has a podcast just as a geek about props. And he's had it for years. Like, he's one of us. He's one of us that looks at it on screen and goes, is that the thing? Oh, look at the pommel on that sword. That's that sword. So he gets the passion for that continuity that we want in these big sagas, that the little things are important. And he was the one that said, no, we're not changing anybody's names. Does this mean we're going to have lots of people called Aegon? Yes, it does. And you know what? That's how the story goes.
Exactly.
Get used to it.
Yeah, they're keeping it true to the story. And the music. The
music is amazing.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant. It's so. In fact, this last episode, the music.
So well, because it opened it the way it did, and so it's very quiet. It's very atmospheric, and the music was just beautiful. I can't think. Ramin Djawadi.
Yeah, Ramin Djawadi. Yep.
Yeah, just phenomenal. And they're releasing those tracks as the episodes come out. So there's not a full soundtrack available yet.
Right.
But you can get those tracks as they release with the episodes. And some of them are beautiful. I know.
I like that they kept the same intro music. It gives some cohesion from Game of Thrones.
It does. I still do. I mean, it's episode 9. I still do find the opening sequence confusing. I know that it's bloodlines. I've learnt that it's bloodlines, and it's supposed to show you this Targaryen bloodline. But I don't think they've made each of the icons that the bloodline goes through clear enough to indicate that it is a bloodline, or who each of those points depicts.
I agree.
So I'm hoping that for season 2, that gets upgraded, changed, more detailed, something that makes it clearer. Because if I'm struggling, and I've read Fire and Blood, and I'm a big fan of Fire and Blood, and I'm struggling, there is no way in hell that a casual viewer has any idea what the hell is going on there.
Right. Yeah.
There's just no way.
And I haven't completely. I know the gist of of pretty much the entire book from bits and pieces I picked up. I have not finished reading Fire and Blood yet, but I'm working my way through it. So, history books take me a little longer just in general. So
Yeah. And it is written like that.
it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And I will say that even though they've sort of scrunched time up a little bit and changed the ages of a couple of people, they've done it very cleverly to maintain overall cohesion. Like they haven't changed it so nothing else can work.
Yeah.
They've done it just enough to make this part of the story tight, which I think is really good. I think it's really clever. And as I say, it hasn't messed up anything that could flow on from it or have gone before. I think that they've really done well. So by the time you have Ryan Condor as a showrunner respecting the source material, you've got Miguel Sapochnik, who was so involved with Game of Thrones, so you get that theatrical and epicness that you got from the TV show, and you bring that in. And then you have I don't know if everybody's seen them, but the behind the scenes making of the dragon. It's like a 20-minute bit that comes out every week that talks about the behind the scenes stuff for that episode.
Oh,
and so
yeah,
you've got
yeah. It's
a handful of directors, and they
Mhm.
talk about what they were looking for in a particular scene, or how they did the visual effect for this thing. And it was just, they're all being really invested in telling a good story, not necessarily about trying to get to a big climatic ending. They're like, no, how do I make this episode stand really strongly on its own and still move us from the beginning of the episode to where it needs to be at the end of the episode? I think the fact that they've had a woman director direct 4 episodes this season has been amazing. I think they heard a lot of the feedback from the world about the levels of nakedness, and they've gone, okay, we don't need to do that. You are going to watch long dialogue heavy scenes without that in the background. Okay,
Right.
we won't. And they haven't been gratuitous with the sex, and they haven't been gratuitous with the violence. Yes, there is violence. Yes, it is gory, but battle is gory, and they've offset it by going, but we're not going to forget the fact that so is childbirth. And if you
Right.
want one, we're going to give you both, because you
Mhm.
can't have one without the other. You have
Exactly.
to recognize that these are not the only battles that are going on. And I think they've done it just so well, Jazz. So well.
They have. I
So good.
agree. I couldn't be happier. The episode between uh, the love scene between Kristen and Rhaenyra, I think, was very tastefully done, and that was one of the episodes that was directed by a
Yes.
woman as well. I
Yep.
remember seeing her interview after the show ended, and I thought that was really tastefully done. And it's
Considering
funny.
they'd spent time in the brothel just moments before, even that was done. It was done with it was appropriate.
Yeah.
It seems like a weird word to use about a brothel scene.
Yeah, right.
But it was like, no, the point that was trying to be made here is that this is a choice. Everybody is here by choice,
Right.
and everybody is here for enjoyment, and that's the point.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's consenting, everybody's okay with being here, and that came across. And yet it wasn't just titillation.
Right.
It just read very differently to similar scenes that we got in Game of Thrones that would just felt uncomfortable. Like, do we really need this? Really? But
I will admit,
she did a fantastic job.
I will admit, after that episode, I went and looked up the actress's name, the actress's age, because I'm like,
Yes.
I'm sure they would have,
Yeah.
but they made her look so young.
So young.
And
Yeah.
she does look young anyway, but she's 22
Yeah.
years old, and she
Yep.
does look young, but they made her look even younger, and I'm like, I couldn't
And
help
that you
it.
get that little bit
I
of
went and looked up, and I'm like, okay, she was of age. We're good.
and that's it. Because, and again, with Game of Thrones, that it wasn't that they were girls. They were
Right.
young girls
Oh,
in Game
yeah.
of Thrones. So
Well,
that discomfort was
Daenerys in the
different.
book was 13 years old, right
I
around
know,
when
even
she was
younger.
married, when she was betrothed to.
On her wedding night, she was 14 when
Yeah.
she was pregnant with Rhaego, and
Hmm. Yep.
and that's
But back then, that
that's
was.
both me not judging and me going, for today's audience, I can see why they aged them all up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and I think that awareness of what the audience can take, and the awareness that people are going to get shirty if somebody too young is in one of those scenes,
Hmm.
and that we figured out that, yes, while we like all of our jiggly bits out on display, sometimes it's not always good for the show.
Right.
So I think they've taken all of that on board and gone, okay, we'll do it differently and we'll see how that works. And
Hmm.
clearly, I think they've trod the line really well, where they've gone,
Hmm.
okay, this is a scene in a brothel, so we can't have it all straight laced and tied up, but we are going to kind of filter the image through these walls, and we're not going to linger on any of these scenes. We're just going to go, oh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and we're looking at something else,
Hmm.
which is very different. There's a very different sensibility to it, and it makes it much easier to watch. I
It
wouldn't be
does. Right.
embarrassed sitting next to my mum watching that. Whereas there were definitely scenes in Game of Thrones you'd be like, a cup of tea, mum. Yeah,
One lump or
you're
two.
just not gonna. Yeah. so, so yeah, I just think they're doing a fantastic job across the board. Yes, there are things that maybe need to be changed. They're gonna change them. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
very much feel like they're listening and they're
Hmm.
going, okay, we just need to tweak that a little bit, because that kind of went down but kind of didn't. So we'll change the bit that didn't. Or we're going to lean into what didn't, because people didn't dislike that enough.
Right.
Because I think that's what they're trying to do with Damon.
I
Because I
think
know
so.
there was a
Yeah.
scene with when Lena is killed by Vhagar. I
Yes.
know they filmed a scene with him comforting the girls that
Hmm.
they cut. And they cut after editing, after effects, after everything. I think because people already liked Damon enough, they didn't need to give him another good moment. I think they were like,
Right.
why are people liking him? Stop it. He's a
Right.
bad guy.
Yeah, we don't want you to like him, so we're going to make it
Yes,
even harder to like him.
yeah. Yes, Kevin, I do. I think they need to change Misaria's accent. And the reason I think they need to change Misaria's accent is because I think the actor has to work too hard on maintaining it. The conversation that she has sitting at the table outside in that final episode, you can
Yeah.
almost see her having to concentrate on getting the words out of her mouth properly.
Yeah.
I want to see her put that effort into acting, because
Absolutely.
she's a
Yeah.
really good actress.
She
I
is.
don't want her spending that much focus on words
Right.
that she can say in our own language.
Yeah.
It really bothered me in that scene, because I just felt, it's like, it
Yeah.
took me
Yeah.
out of
She
it.
she was definitely having to work too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just shouldn't. When you think that, Matt Smith and Millie Alcock were able to have entire conversations in High Valyrian and
Hmm.
have it seem completely natural,
Hmm.
because it was a made up language. They could just
Hmm.
let it flow. Whereas she's trying to alter words she already knows. So she's got to focus on changing them. And it made for really uncomfortable viewing.
It
And
did.
I'm like,
Yeah.
don't like that. Don't like that at all. Take it away. She
Hmm.
doesn't need an accent. We know she's foreign. Just take it away. Take it away. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And if that's my complaint, really, that's a pretty good season of telly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so many
That's
things could have gone wrong, and that's what I'm going to complain about.
right.
You know? So if that's the first thing I'm going to complain about, I think they've done really well.
Yeah. Absolutely. They have done a very good job. I have not seen an episode that I disliked at all yet,
Yeah.
and I don't anticipate I will.
Hmm.
This is going to be a series I'll go back to over and over again,
Yeah, I
and
think
I
so.
feel like that with Game of Thrones. I've already watched it 3 times, and I'll probably watch it again. But House of the Dragon is really pulling out all the stops.
They really are.
Yeah,
And they're doing clever things with the casting. Like they actually cast twins to play Eric and Arik, but they didn't cast
yeah,
twins to play the Lannisters
yeah.
because you
That's
don't get the two of them on screen together very often. Why would you?
hmm
But you need to have the dynamic between brothers
hmm
with Eric and Arik. So you do need to have twins because you need to have the play off each other. You can't have a stand in and have just one of them acting. You need both
right.
of them acting.
hmm
And I think that's great. I really do.
Yeah, I like it as well.
I know
Um,
they
yeah,
who was it?
very good,
Uh,
very good, Austin.
blah, 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 radio no History of Westeros. History of Westeros. They do a podcast and a discussion about the show, and they're huge fans of Song of Ice and Fire. And they were saying it's really easy to get Eric and Arik mixed up. And so they were like, okay, how are we going to tell them apart? How are we going to do it? And apparently their moustaches are different. So the one that points up,
Ah,
the one that has the moustache that points up, the moustache twirl
okay.
is Arik. And Arik starts with an A, like
Uh-huh.
Alicent. So Arik is with Alicent and has the moustache.
Right.
Aha. Okay. I will remember that.
Right.
Because they're identical twins. You need something.
Right.
You can go,
And
what
and,
is the defining feature?
and you got to wonder what their parents were smoking. If they're identical twins already, why would you name them such similar names?
But it's clearly a thing in Westeros because
Right?
in current
Oh yeah.
Westerosi,
Look
you've
at
got
my real mustache.
Queen of Thrones, that's Queen of Thorns. She's got bodyguards called Eric and Arik, who are identical twins, that she calls
Right.
left and right. So it's clearly a thing in Westeros that if you have identical twins, that you name them ridiculously similar names.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I like that. I like that it's also a repeated thing that they did later or
Oh yeah,
earlier, depending on
definitely.
when it got written.
And by this time you've got so many Aegons running around the country.
You really do.
Yeah.
But then again, you look at history and you think, okay, well, how many Henrys did we have?
Oh
How
my, yeah.
many Williams did we have? How many Edwards have we had?
Mhm.
It happens. This is what
It does.
royalty, ruling people, long-lived families do. Even just in everyday life, you meet
Mhm.
people who are something, something, something the third.
Mhm.
Somebody junior.
Right.
People get named after their parents all the time.
Right.
It's not unusual. People get named after their grandparents all the
Yeah,
time.
they do.
It still happens,
Mhm.
and yeah, so I like it. I like that they've done that because it does add to the confusion later,
Mhm.
which adds into the whole, is this actually what happened? Have we given the right action to the right Aegon? Because we
Right.
know an Aegon did it.
Right.
Did we give it to the right Aegon? We don't know,
Right.
because that's what happens in our history.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love that. It makes it feel real.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it gets so convoluted that it
Hmm.
it does. It feels real.
Well, hey, try and explain your family, just your normal, everyday family that you're living with right now.
Right.
Try and sit down and write it on a piece of paper and say, okay, these are my parents, except that one's not my actual parent. So that's my step parent. So that one's my real parent.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that parent got remarried. So I've got these siblings that are only half siblings. But
Mhm.
this parent brought children with them. So I also have these step siblings. And you're like, I'm only talking about two people at this point, my
Right.
father and my stepfather. And now I've got half siblings and step siblings. And now they're married and then they've got kids. So That's just me in my normal everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Families get complicated real fast.
They do. Yeah.
And so to see it at this level being done with reality,
Mm-hmm.
with that families don't always get on,
Right.
and yet someone else comes along and has a go, you just close ranks. We've seen that.
Right.
That happens. It makes it easy to watch because you get it. You're like, yeah, I don't like my stepmother either. Or, well, of course I've got a problem with my dad marrying someone younger than me.
Right.
Those are real things. They happen in real life.
They are. Yeah, absolutely. Complicated families make for
They
the best
do.
stories. I agree. Yeah. That's
I
for
mean,
sure.
they just do. Because it's all emotional, and you know that it's like, oh, and yet to the outside we've got to look like this completely unified front,
Right.
where if I do step out of line, I'm the bad guy. I might be telling the truth, but if I say so, I'm the bad guy,
Right.
and they're all going to come for me
Mm-hmm.
because I've broken the family line, you know. And suddenly you're in a ruling house that has dragons, and you look at Daemon and Viserys, and you're weak. You're the king, but you're weak. I'll marry your daughter. She'll be queen. There won't be any weakness on the throne.
Right.
And I absolutely believe that was the mindset behind that.
Oh,
It's like, no,
sure.
you put her and me on the throne, nobody's coming for Westeros.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
We are not going to be seen as weak, but you
Mm-hmm.
are, you know. And that, but the minute you fill that throne room with other people, I'm going to give you my shoulder and take you to the throne because you are the king.
Yeah.
And anybody else looking on is only ever going to see me support you.
Right.
But when it's just the two of us, I can say to you, you're actually crap at being king.
Yeah.
And I would do a better job. And we see it with Aegon and Daemon playing out in the next generation,
Yeah. Yeah, we
you
do.
know,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yep.
Aemon is very, very conscious that he would make a better king. He's
Mm-hmm.
done the work, he's done the study, he's got the knowledge, but he also knows that he can't just kill his brother and take over because his brother's going to be crap.
Right.
Because they all know he's going to be crap.
They do.
So
Yeah.
they're like, okay, we just have to do what we can to support him
Yeah.
and do our best.
Right.
Inside the family, everybody can acknowledge he's really crap at being king.
He is. Yep.
But from the outside, they're all going to close rank and defend him
Mm-hmm.
because that's what family does.
Exactly.
And it makes for really good watching.
It does. Yeah, very good watching. I've been thoroughly impressed with it,
Mm.
and with Rings of Power too. I really enjoyed Rings of Power.
They're
Uh,
going for a different thing, and I think they've both
yeah.
both achieved it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So.
I think expectation is what's hurt Rings of Power.
Mm-hmm.
I think Game of Thrones and I think House of the Dragon have set people's expectation for a fantasy show to be something just that.
Mm-hmm.
But fantasy is all of this as well. And Rings of Power is over here somewhere doing that really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the audience just has gone in with a mindset that wasn't ready for it because I think it's great.
Oh, I do too. I think it is as well, and it seems like people are like really going for a lot darker and grittier, like The
Mm.
Witcher and like House of the Dragon and such like
Yeah,
that. But and Rings of Power definitely has the more Peter Jackson feel to it.
it's very old fashioned fantasy.
It
It's a
is.
story of hope and friendship and goodness, and
Mhm.
that's a very different thing than a political family drama
Mhm.
that
It is.
happens to have dragons.
Right.
Rings of Power is about faith and community and
Mm-hmm.
friendship and trust and all of those things that fairy tales try and teach you when you're a child.
Right.
Because it's a fairy tale,
It is. Yeah.
it is doing
And
some
there
clunky
are some
things.
politics, but
There are.
it's not the main feature. It's not
No.
the
And it's also not hidden. Like they're
Mhm.
going, ha ha, this guy's the sneaky politician.
Mhm.
You know, they're not making that about, subtext and subterfuge. It's like,
Right.
no, he clearly has a different agenda. And they've done some clunky lines. Um, Somebody in the writer's room didn't get the memo that this is fantasy and old fashioned, and sentences shouldn't be, I had a dinner. It should be, I broke bread with the son of such and such.
Yeah,
It
I've
shouldn't
noticed
be,
a
I had
few
a
of
dinner.
those.
Mm.
Mhm.
So somebody in the writer's room didn't get that memo.
Right.
But I can forgive that. It's season one. And it's season one of a show that has never existed before. There
Mhm.
hasn't been a TV show like this before. There has been movies. And
Yeah.
there were 3 movies done by one person with a vision
Mhm.
that nobody had expectations for.
Right.
Nobody knew what to expect for Lord of the Rings. Nobody knew what we were going to get. And what we got was just a phenomenon.
Yeah. And having to work with the Tolkien estate, I
Yeah.
think they've done a phenomenal job because
So
I
much of the material is off limits.
yeah, it is. I can't imagine working for that kind of uh family estate.
Well,
I
even they don't know or can't clearly say who has what rights to what parts of what story,
right, exactly.
which is insanity.
Yeah.
But for them to have to ask to include the trees that are a
Mhm.
fundamental part of the birth of Tolkien's world,
Right.
but they had to ask to include that
Mhm.
because it's not part of what they've got the rights to.
Mhm.
So to be able to enjoy the show and give it the respect it needs, you either have to have zero information about the show
Right.
or enough information to know they haven't got the rights to the things you think they should be including.
Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere in between, you're going to be grumpy.
Oh, that would make an interesting show.
It really would, because there's a
Yeah.
letter, because I had this on the internet the other day. Letter, I'll get in my notebook. Letter 113 in the Tolkien letters that they did stuff with. He actually says to his editor that the idea for Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion was to give England a mythos, like you've got
Uh-huh.
in Europe. You've got your brownies, your elves, your pixies, your fairy lore. But
Mhm.
England doesn't have its own. It kind of
Right.
co-opted Europe's. So Tolkien was like, no, I want to build this mythology, and there will be blank spaces on the map
Right.
that perhaps other people could use.
Mhm.
So he did always have in his mind that he was not going to be the sole owner of this mythos.
Right.
Of course, he's died. It's in copyright. His family owns it as a concept, and it's doing really well. So
Mhm.
no, nobody else is allowed to play in our sandpit. Tolkien literally wrote this for other people to play in.
Yeah, he did.
So I'm totally down with what they're doing in Rings of Power. I'm totally okay with the fact that they've truncated time. I'm
Mhm.
totally okay with they've just done away completely with reincarnation of Durin.
Mhm.
I'm okay with those things because
Mhm.
for a TV show, you don't need that to tell the story.
Right.
And a TV show works differently to a book.
It does.
Like
Yeah.
how many adaptations are rubbish? How many adaptations are good? Depends on what you're after.
Mhm.
And some of the best adaptations don't follow beat for beat. They follow the story as a whole and tell that story,
Yeah.
perhaps in a different order, perhaps from a different point of view, but they're telling that story properly. And I
Exactly.
think they're
Yeah,
doing that with Rings of Power. I think they're doing a great job.
I
I
think
really
they are
do.
too. Yeah. I'm very impressed with the direction they're taking it.
Hmm.
I feel like I feel like so many of the actors embody what they should embody, and um, somebody was just talking to me today saying how they don't like uh, how they don't like Galadriel, and this Galadriel is quite a bit different than the Galadriel we get in the later stories, but she's in a different place in her life.
Also, Tolkien couldn't decide who
Right.
Galadriel was.
Yeah.
There are so many different versions of Galadriel in his writing.
Mm.
Some of them directly contradict each other wildly.
Yeah.
They had a lot of material that they were allowed to draw on
Yeah.
that contradicted itself.
Yeah.
And they've chosen the version of Galadriel that fits the story they want to tell
Hmm.
and does, if they get the story right, it does follow a path that leads to that Galadriel in the movies.
Right.
I think if you're going to have a go at people that they've created or somehow embodied in the TV show, you have a go
Hmm.
at Gil-galad because he
Hmm.
should not be a turkey. He should not.
Ah.
He's supposed to be wise and have foresight and be regal and the
Hmm.
quintessential smart elf. And
Hmm.
they've somehow got him playing this douche. And I don't like it because that's not who Gil-galad should be.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
really
I'm.
hoping that something changes there.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of him either. Um, Kajuke likes Galadriel, so cool.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
Galadriel.
I like Galadriel as well. I'm a very big fan. I think uh, I love Elrond. I love
He
the
is just marvelous, isn't he?
he's a
Oh,
magnificent actor,
do you
and
recognize him?
yes, yeah, from Game of Thrones. Yeah, he
Yeah,
played young Ned Stark.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was thrilled. I kept going, I'm sure I've seen him before. Sure I have. And then
yeah,
somebody said, he looks like the young Ned Stark. I'm like, he does. And then I looked it up and I went, oh, that's because he is.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's
And I was
brilliant
really
though,
impressed.
and I can and I think of him, and then I think of Elrond from the Peter Jackson movies, and I'm like, it
I can
totally
see it.
works. Oh yeah, absolutely,
I can
it
see it
totally works.
definitely. I do. And I do quite like the guy they've got playing Celebrimbor. I think he comes
I do
across
too. Yeah,
as that person so focused on his work that he kind of doesn't really pay attention to the politics.
right.
But I like the guys they've got playing the dwarves. I think that they're doing
Oh,
marvelously.
Durin is amazing.
During the king, during the
Yeah.
elder, I think is fantastic. The woman they've got playing Disa, I love her.
Oh, she's great.
I
Yeah.
love her heaps.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting a lot of things right. I
Mm-hmm.
really like what they did with the stranger in the last episode. Um,
I did too.
I still don't know who those weird women are. They're weird.
I
They're weird.
I only yeah, they are weird, and I was listening to uh Den of it's one of the ones that you turned me on to for on
What,
YouTube. Den
Indeed
of
Geek?
what's that? Den of Geek? Yeah.
Indeed Geek? Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching one of their videos, I think it was, and they called them the witches of Rune, which
Oh, of
that makes sense.
course.
They're from Rune,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
yeah, yeah. So and
okay.
that's a
Now I know
really
who they are.
because the show did not make that clear.
No,
So
that
yeah,
might become clear though,
it might
because
be
that is
clear.
where the stranger's going.
Hmm.
That actually makes sense. Now that
Yeah,
yes, light bulb moment. Yes, that makes sense.
yeah.
I liked that.
Um, a lot of
That makes
people are
sense.
a lot of people are now saying after the final episode that the stranger is Gandalf. Um,
I think he's Gandalf.
I think he probably is, although I think there's still room
There's
to.
room for him to also be Sauron. Sorry,
Well,
Saruman.
possibly there's also room for him to be somebody completely different as well. So, but
Yeah, I don't know that he'd be a blue wizard.
yeah,
The power level doesn't work for me.
yeah,
For him to be one of the blue wizards, he could be Radagast. Or one, I can't think of the
he
name of
could
the
be
other brown
Radagast.
wizard.
That's true. Although
Um,
he's
but
not
they're more nature um, linked than fire.
he's not bonkers enough to be Radagast. I don't think.
But I would have thought Radagast became bonkers.
Well, maybe so. That's true. Yeah, that could be.
You know, when you deal only with animals,
Yeah, yeah, you do get a bit bonkers after a while. That's true. Yeah,
you know. But so I think he would be one of the higher wizards, which for
yeah,
me kind of means Gandalf or Saruman.
true.
And at this point, I think it's open to be both. It could be either.
Hmm.
I'm rooting for Gandalf because you've got this connection to the Harfoots, and
Yeah,
Saruman has
exactly.
no knowledge of the halflings, so
Hmm.
that works for me.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
the familiarity of the hominess of the halflings and the occasional moments of daring that the
Hmm.
halflings are capable of, that are both things Gandalf knows about. Like he knows that occasionally there'll be a hobbit who is actually quite brave and
Right.
can perhaps go out and have adventures and be okay with that. While at the same time, most of them like to stay close together and have lots of food and be comfortable.
Right. Exactly.
And
Well,
I
well,
think that's what we're getting. I think that's what we're getting from the stranger.
yeah. I think it does feel that way. I guess we'll see if this wizard develops a an affinity for the halfling's leaf.
This is true. Although that is something that they develop a bit later, if I recall from the books.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think we get that at the beginning of Fellowship.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
I think. So I think they don't develop that until they settle in what becomes the Shire.
Right.
But they certainly have a love for growing things, and they
Hmm.
certainly have this love of community and food and um, shared goals and shared um, problem solving and just coming together as a group to
Right.
achieve something. And
Mhm.
I just, that for me feels like it's going to be the connection to Gandalf
Yeah.
and deciding your fate, deciding your path,
Mhm.
deciding to be good. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's a lesson that Saruman ever had.
Yeah, I don't think so. Saruman was much more aloof, much
Mm.
more yeah, much more to himself. He wasn't
It
really
was about the
involved.
learning,
Yeah,
um,
all about the learning, exactly. Yeah.
which can and clearly in his case will eventually become about power.
Hmm.
Squirreling wheels of cheese away. Nice. One of the comments on a chat for in Deep Geek around Rings of Power, somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if those wagon wheels that are such a big deal at the moment because of this nomadic lifestyle are the doors to the hobbit holes?
Hmm.
That symbolic, we're staying here, take the wheels off the cart and they become our homes.
Right.
And I thought, what a brilliant piece of symbolism.
Hmm.
So I'm really hoping that at whatever time the series ends, that is somehow incorporated. Like I want that to be a thing
Hmm.
because I liked that as an idea. I was like, yeah, I like that.
I
That
like
would be
it
great.
too.
Just as a concept, because they have those round doors that are so iconic.
Yeah,
That works for me.
I think that will be neat to see that how that develops.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm excited for the future of it.
One thing I did have a bit of a gripe about in the last episode with Rings of Power is I'm going to have to check because I don't like to be wrong, but I think they spent more time saying goodbye to Nori than they did forging the rings. That was a little annoying.
Yeah, that's true. They probably did. Yeah.
That was the only time all season that I've actually looked at the time bar and I've sort of shuffled my mouse along it going, how long are they saying goodbye to Nori? Come on. Because that went on, that scene, a lot. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was a lot of goodbying. You're right. Hi, Shad.
Oh, hi, Shad. Yeah, it's me. I can talk a while. We're good. But yeah, it took so long, and yet the forging of the rings happened really fast.
It did.
It felt like I would have liked to have seen more of that. Once they got rid of when it was just the elves in the room, when it was just Elrond and Galadriel and Celebrimbor, which I did like because aren't they the initial three that wear the rings? Is it Celebrimbor's ring that ends up with Gandalf?
I think eventually, I think it's Gilgalad's that goes to Gandalf eventually.
Oh, okay. Right? Oh, well, maybe that's the thing that the third ring there for Gilgalad is being represented by
because I know
Elrond and Galadriel do,
and Elrond has his.
Yeah, because that's what keeps their little realms particularly elvish.
Right.
And then, of course, Gandalf has the one that moves about.
Right.
Yeah. I am wondering how they're going to do the rings because, the lore would have us believe that they're all kind of created roughly the same time.
Yeah, I wondered about that because, that felt a little out of place, although I'm fine with it, whatever.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's about telling the story, really, isn't it? Are they telling it well? And I think they are. But it made me think, is this going to be like the next season is the Rings for Men? Is the one after that the Rings for Dwarves? Maybe. And the final season, because haven't they said 4 seasons? 4 or 5 seasons?
And
like the final season, forging of the One Ring.
Yeah, I know they want to do 4 seasons. I guess we'll see how many they renew it for.
Because if that was the plan, then they're off to a pretty good start, I've got to say. There were certainly moments in the series that were fabulous.
Yeah.
There were moments that made me go, really? I didn't like Halbrand riding off on a horse with a gut wound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't make sense for me.
That doesn't.
That didn't make sense. But I loved when the water is released from the dam and you get all of the tunnels that you've been watching the orcs dig get filled with water, and you're like, that's what the tunnels were for. That was a nice moment to literally be saying that to the screen. I get it now. Clever. I was impressed by that. I don't know who Adar is. I'm hoping he sticks around because he was an interesting character.
Yeah, I'm hoping he sticks around as well. I'm curious to see, because I would think.
Well, he said he killed Sauron.
Yeah.
So there's beef there. I want to see that. I want to see Adar and Sauron and find out what that was. I want to see that.
I do too. Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
Because how I see it, it's one of those, there's clearly a story there.
Yes.
So to pick at that, I want to see. I want to see that.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting because so far I'm not hugely won over by the acting of Sauron. But we've also had Sauron being not Sauron. So that could just be a choice. Whereas the bloke who plays Adar was also Benjen in Game of Thrones, we know is a really good actor. And he's already shown us he's a really good actor. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing that strong dynamic between he and Sauron. I think it's going to be interesting to watch.
It is.
Because I like the bloke they've got playing Elendil, the father.
Yeah, I like him
I
too.
like him.
Yeah,
He's
and
a
I
really
like
strong actor.
Isildur as well.
It took me an episode or two to get used to Isildur. I think because he looks like too many blokes that live around here. It was really hard for me to take that face seriously as a character in a fantasy show, because he looks local. So, but yes, he won me. He's very good.
Right.
He's
Oh, Spectre has an interesting idea here. Look, um, wonder if they'll show the rings
yeah,
made in the order of the. Yeah,
that could work really well. And if
good.
dwarves are for the next season, that would suggest that Durin Senior dies at some point, and our Durin and Disa feel the need to be showing power. And because Disa did have her little moment of power hungry.
She did, yeah.
You're going to be king, I'm going to be queen, and we're going to make this how we want it. And that's where you get the hook for Sauron to go, can help you there. Here's your rings of power. That would work.
It would, yeah. Yeah, so have a different set of rings for each season. Yeah. Depending on how many seasons.
Because I think that works.
Yeah.
Because it would end. Like, can you imagine that as your final scene of your last episode, of that close in on the ring with the words all coming with the dark elvish all around? Oh.
Yeah.
Because of course, as a Lord of the Rings fan, you're like, that is that moment of power.
Right.
You know, the to use a phrase that would close the circle. That would, yeah, I like that. That's a very satisfying way for that to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
And so you would need then the rings of power for men, because the dwarves now have all this power, and the elves now have all this power, and now Sauron's about, and look, orcs and stuff. Now we need to be stronger and more powerful.
Right.
That would really work.
It would.
So excited.
Derri for
me for president.
I
live in New Zealand. We don't have a president. we have a prime minister. I wouldn't want to be president. Yeah. Jeez. Have you seen the state of the states? No way do I want that job. Holy moly. No.
I think you're much happier in New Zealand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the place to be when the world turns to custard. Seriously, this is where you come. When there's an apocalypse, this is where you want to live. We're a long way from everywhere. There's an ocean between us and the rest of the world. This is where you want to be.
And there's famous movie locales.
And if we want to, we can live on Mount Doom.
Right.
I don't know why you would want to, but you could. You know, I personally would rather go and live in the Shire.
Right.
Because it's there. It's a place. It's real. I have been there. It's gorgeous.
Oh, I bet it is. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic.
It blew my mind, Chaz. It blew my mind. Because you walk onto the little pathway roundabout intersection, and suddenly you're in the movie because you're at the signpost that tells you the Shire is that way.
Right.
And you walk down the path and there's the Shire.
Yeah.
Madness. And they didn't need to build the pub, the Green Dragon, because they could film that inside a set if they wanted to. They only needed the frontage for the wide shots. Be jealous. It was awesome. But they built the whole pub. It's a whole actual pub with a brewery. They brew their own cider and they brew their own beer. You can hire it out for conferences or weddings. I was like, oh my God, if I ever get married. And I'm thinking, who the heck's going to marry me? Nearly 50. If I know someone who's a geek who's getting married, totally come and have it at the Shire. Right. And have the Green Dragon cider and the Green Dragon beer. And the pub itself is just exquisite. Like it's all really comfy armchairs, and
Oh
it's
man.
it's it's decked out like the hobbits just aren't there right now. Like there's notices up the post next to the bar that says things like, "Can Tom Proudfoot pick up his wheelbarrow?" You know, um, Farmer Gamgee needs help bringing in spuds if you want a couple
Ah,
of days' work. It's just the most. Somebody's knitting in the corner, forgotten. It's the most amazing place.
that sounds like it. And like
Oh,
Kaiju K, you had me at beer. Yeah, I,
yeah,
I'm totally there just on the
it was just
prospect
the
of
most
beer.
amazing thing. It
And
just, oh, it's there.
yeah, I bet it is.
I didn't think that guy would end up being
Uh,
Sauron.
yeah,
But
I thought the same thing.
yeah,
I
I
was
was
thinking
thinking
it was
along
going
those lines.
to be Sauron. Yeah.
Yep, I was. And then when it was revealed, I remembered that it's the Rings of Power, not House of the Dragon. So,
Hmm.
of course, the bad guy is going to be the one who was kind of going, "I'm the bad guy," all season. Of
Yeah.
course, it's Rings of Power. And he was all the way through. You're thinking, did you take that off a dead guy? Really? I think you might have done, actually. Because, oh, you got really violent really suddenly in that fight. And you
Mhm.
did just steal that. And okay, yeah, you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Totally the bad guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
wasn't
you
sure.
could see it once it was revealed, and
Mm, I think
yeah,
it's one
stop
of
selling
those.
yourself short, Derry. You're awesome.
Thank you. But
You'll
it
make
was.
someone very happy.
Oh, well, they have to make me happy,
Right?
basically, because
Exactly.
I like my little
Indeed,
pocket of the
I
world
agree.
where I can have my little stacks of washi tape randomly and nobody be annoyed by,
Yep, and your
and
stickers.
all my stickers. And the fact that no, my book gets pride of place because,
Right,
and who is happy to have spaceships on the wall because
right.
and my TARDIS, and I have quirks, and I'm old enough now to go. I'm not changing them. No,
I'm the same
so
way. Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah,
no,
not changing mine either. Absolutely.
yeah.
There is an
So
international treasure. Yes,
oh,
indeed.
yay me! Thank you. That's really flattering. I appreciate that.
It's well
So
deserved.
I
Oh,
think,
CD just joined us. Hey.
hey, I think part of it is people tell you your whole life, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
People
Right.
will like you. Just be yourself. And it takes so long to figure out what that actually feels like. And it looks like this. I can't be bothered doing my hair all the time, so I'm going to shave it off
Yeah, I don't blame you.
because it makes me happy.
Yeah,
So it takes a long time to figure out who you are. And
it
then
does.
suddenly people like you. And you're
Mhm.
like, oh, it was that easy? Really?
Yeah,
That doesn't feel right.
yeah, you're
Like
confident
it
in
feels
who you are, and
it,
all of a sudden it just clicks. It works.
and it doesn't feel right. It feels unearned somehow. Because all your life you're taught you have to do this and do that and do this and do that, and people will like you.
Right.
So you have to work really hard at it. And so to find out that actually you don't have to work hard for it, it's it's so dissonant to what you already know. It's
Right.
very strange, very difficult to get used to
It
that being
is.
myself means people like me. It's very
Mhm.
strange. So
Is that a battle starship behind you?
it
Yes.
certainly is. This is the
So say
Mark
we
II
all.
Viper. This is the Mark II Viper as seen in Battlestar Galactica, piloted by Starbuck. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
it is Battlestar.
Battlestar is fantastic.
It is.
Mhm.
It does feel great. I threw out my makeup a few years ago when my sister turned 40 and I went to use my eyeliner and I looked at it and it had gone moldy. And I was like, huh, when did I last use that? And I couldn't actually think when I'd used it. So I thought, oh, I clearly don't use this enough and threw it all away and never looked back. It's
Yeah,
great.
that's
So,
good.
well, it means I'm
Good.
nearly 50. I've got pretty good skin. So
Absolutely. I'd say you do.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
Oh,
Battlestar was a great show.
It really
Fantastic.
was. There's a couple doing reactions to it at the minute that I found. Because you know how they learn you somehow, the internet,
Sure.
and it throws
Yeah.
things at you. Like, you might like this. Well, I got shown this couple who are doing the reactions to TV shows, and they're doing Battlestar Galactica, and I love it so much because I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. And you see them get addicted really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got the husband and wife, and the husband's the one that asks the questions, how did you feel about that? And what did you think about the other? And the wife's just like, can we just watch the next episode? I'm like, I'm with you, honey. Just watch the next episode.
Exactly.
It's amazing because it really draws you in. And there was an episode they watched last week before, episodes from season 3, Exodus, where they get rescued from a planet. And there's a big dramatic sequence that when I first saw it, when Galactica comes into an atmosphere, it jumps into an atmosphere and just plummets toward the Earth. And I watched it first time, and I was like, wow. And then it jumps away, and you get the moment where the air rushes back into the space it just left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that was amazing.
It was, yeah.
And so watching this couple react to it, like 20 years later almost, have the same reaction was fantastic. So I was like, yes, it is that
I
moment.
need to rewatch that show. Edward James Olmos was magnificent as Adama.
I think so. I loved Mary McDonald's Rosalind. I thought she was
good
phenomenal.
too. Yeah,
She was
absolutely.
so great. I loved Starbucks. See, this is the thing with adaptations. The first TV show was this thing that people loved. It was very cheesy. It had a vibe, and they redid it, and it was completely different, and it was better.
It was so much
It
better.
was so much better. An interesting thing to consider, though, is Battlestar was in conversation. How books are in conversation with things.
Mm-hmm.
It was in conversation with 9/11. So that first miniseries that came out of nowhere, suddenly the whole planet's been bombed and everybody's fleeing and nobody knows what's going on.
Right.
That was a direct reaction to 9/11. But then they didn't get picked up for nearly 2 years.
Oh,
so then
wow.
there was a big. So then you come back with the TV show, and that TV show became about the fallout with Al Qaeda and terrorism and sleeper cells and not knowing who was on one side and who was on the other. You have a series of TV shows that are about not knowing if somebody you're talking to is a Cylon because they look like us. So then you had this connection around terrorism. And then you had an episode that had a captured Cylon. Well, what are the limits? They're not like us. We can do what we like to them. And that happened not long after the release of footage from Guantanamo Bay. So now we've got that being discussed. Then later in the show, you've got political intrigue around a stolen election. And so it was very current, telling this really fantastical science fiction story. What are the reasons behind why you would want to control an election? What if the results aren't true?
Right.
What if they were? Why would you do that? What if the decision that was the one that people voted for is wrong? Do we let it stand? Do we not? Do we? And all of these relevant conversations are happening around this TV show set in space. And it was just so good. People who were mourning, who didn't know if their families existed, people dealing with trauma, and just it won a Peabody Award. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I did. I remember that. Yeah.
And I'd never even heard of a Peabody. So to discover that the show that I loved got an award just for general being awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm down with that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we got a new cuss word out of it.
Yes, we did. And it was so great. Fracking. It was so great.
I always got a kick, like, especially when Starbuck would say, frack you. I'm like,
yeah, because you know what she's saying.
Yeah, you know what she's saying. It's so funny.
I liked it as well because you actually saw a real range that's still rare, 20 years on, a real range of women. Like you didn't just get this is the warrior woman. You had Starbuck, who was still really feminine in this incredibly masculine role. You had Rosalind, who was very feminine in this incredibly masculine role.
Yeah.
And they played them really well. And you see Dee, who just got to be the voice that welcomed everybody home. And that's how she said, you know, that's how I got into my character. Mine was the voice that the pilots would hear, being given their okay to come in and land and being told, yes, you're safe. You know, you're within the flak boundary. And I thought, that's brilliant. And you had crazy women. You had Kat, who was high on stimulants. And you had, it was to just have that depth of character where they got written as three-dimensional people.
Right.
Was wonderful. And they were the rule, not the exception. I mean, the men were written brilliantly as well, don't get me wrong. Crikey, I would do anything for Admiral Adama. I would die for that man.
Absolutely, yeah.
But they gave nuance to the character Tom Zarek, who was played by the original Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
He was a fantastic character because he was a terrorist in prison for acts of terrorism, and he became one of the heroes of the show. It was, such a good show.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of that.
Show. What's that?
Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so many good shows, and yeah, it's we never had time to watch them all.
Oh, the problem that I have is I like, hey, a bit like the rereading. I like to rewatch shows I know are really good.
I do too.
Instead of wasting time on shows that are rubbish.
Yeah.
So
I like rewatching shows too. Absolutely. In fact, I can't count the number of times I've rewatched certain episodes of Seinfeld and just
Doctor Who.
Yeah, Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on.
I see your TARDIS.
Yeah, I'm on my third. I'm on my third rewatch of Doctor Who. It's my daughter's first time. Well,
what does she think?
Oh, she loves it. She's totally hooked. Yeah.
How far into it is she? How many doctors has she experienced?
Yeah, so she has experienced 3 so far. We're on the Matt Smith era.
So quite a good batch of views.
We're on the second Matt Smith season. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like Amy. Amy Pond and Rory
I
are
like Amy
probably
too.
my favorite companions.
Yeah. Oh, Pond.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're Mr. Pond. That's how it works.
Right.
Yeah. And I actually like the fact that Rory's response to that was, yeah.
Right.
Kinda.
Oh, so you haven't seen Battlestar or Doctor Who?
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
There's only 4 episodes. There's only 4 seasons of Battlestar, but you must watch the miniseries first. Amazing.
Oh yeah.
There are many more series of Doctor Who, and you will have a favorite Doctor.
Oh yeah.
Can't tell you which one it will be, but you'll find one.
Let's see.
It makes me so
Fringe,
sad.
Kaiju likes Fringe.
There were some good actors in Fringe. Really good actors in Fringe. Bear McCreary, yes, he did do the Battlestar soundtrack and score, and he has done Rings of Power. He's done a really good job, I think, in Rings of Power.
Yeah, definitely. I like the score.
Yeah.
So my favorite Doctor is David Tennant. Always will be. I don't think he'll be replaced.
He did kind of define modern Doctor Who. For all that Christopher Eccleston brought him back. Yeah, I think Tennant defines modern Who.
He did. David Tennant defines a lot of roles that he plays.
To be he really does.
I do have to say though, Jodie Whittaker. I think I like her, and I think part of the reason I like her is because she feels very much like David Tennant's Doctor in a lot of ways.
Yes, she's got that odd sort of distractedness.
Yes,
that he did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'll be sitting there, and I would not be surprised if I heard timey wimey come out of her mouth
Yes,
because
yes, it
yeah,
would feel
it
right.
would feel right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
she's been let. I think it's sad. I think she was let down a lot with the writing in
She
her
was.
series, um, because I think she really could have been a standout doctor. But I think the fact that it was a woman paired with bad writing has seen her doctor not be as successful as I think maybe she could have been.
Hmm.
And I think that's sad. Um, by the same token, I really enjoyed Peter Capaldi's Doctor. I liked
I
Grumpy
did
Doctor.
too. Yeah, I liked him too, and I'm really excited for the new guy.
Oh, so am I. He looks so
Yeah,
good.
he seems like he'll be great.
I say that. My excitement is more for the return of Moffat because I know the
Yeah.
writing will be something I will like.
Yes, Moffat is going to be a big boon for the series
Yeah.
going forward. Yeah,
Which does kind of put even more pressure on this new doctor.
it does. Yeah, for sure.
So I have
I have
some
a
mixed
sneaky
suspicions.
suspicion Tennant will be your favorite too. I just,
Tennant's
you know,
brilliant.
not
I
that
mean, you
I'm
just it's
biased or anything, but
well, I have a soft spot for Tom Baker. Obviously, he was my first doctor,
oh yeah,
and you can never forget your first doctor. And but yeah, I did enjoy Matt Smith's doctor a lot.
he's a great actor.
He is a great actor.
Yeah,
And perhaps that's it, rather than so much that his doctor, but I just think he is a good actor. I mean,
I
so is
have not
David
watched
Tennant.
The Crown, but
Haven't you? Is that just not something that interests you, or
it does. It intrigues me. I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
because I mean, I was born in the UK, and
Right.
we didn't move to New Zealand until the year Charles and Di got married. So, for all that I was young, a lot of what happened in The Crown are things I'm familiar with happening,
Hmm.
and they get it right. Like those things happened, and those are the feelings that people had about it. And it was odd for me being in discords when, well, not even discords, when I was watching um, like reactions in
Hmm.
YouTube, and people not knowing what the Profumo affair was, or people not having a sense of why it was a big deal when Winston Churchill died. I'm like, no, because these are real things. These really happened.
Hmm.
These aren't just movie characters. And I think
Right.
that's part of the confusion. They're so often seen in films that people forget they were real. And it's done exceptionally well. They
Hmm.
cast the actors with some real skill, and they have clearly done their homework, all of them, in portraying who they're supposed to be portraying. And they leave mystery where there should be mystery because no one actually knows for sure what happened behind those closed doors. And I can highly recommend it if it's something that you have a vague interest in. They do a really good
Yeah,
job of
I
tying
am very intrigued
moments of
by the
history into
royals.
it.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah, it's a
intrigued by
really
the
good
royal
show.
family. So,
Yeah, really good show. And they haven't shied away from some of the messier moments
hmm.
either. I mean, you get in the early days of the Queen's reign, her sister Margaret had an affair with a married man,
Hmm.
and she wasn't married. And it was a big scandal. And then the Crown couldn't allow her to marry him because he then got divorced. And the British Queen is the head of the Church of England, and
Hmm.
the Church of England doesn't allow for the marriage when somebody's already been divorced. So she
Right.
couldn't give her sister permission to marry the person who she believed was the love of her life.
Hmm.
Later on, the Queen has said, you can marry him, but I would have to take you out of the royal circle, as it were. You couldn't be called Princess Margaret anymore. You would just be Lady Margaret. You would
Right.
not be part. And Margaret turned it down. So at that point was the realization that being royal, being part of that circle was actually more important
Hmm.
to her than getting married to this man and going off and living off, a royal pension. So it was, and they didn't shy away from that. They didn't shy away from the fact that Margaret was a bit of a drunk. and
Yeah.
smoked too much and did unwise things. They've kept it in. And I like that. Sometimes they may have gone a little bit too far, but not too much.
Right.
Because it is still a TV show. So,
Yeah.
but I think they do a really, really, really good job.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'll definitely have to check it out. Looks like Spectre's a fan of Tom Baker as well. I do like Tom Baker. Now I have not seen the Tom Baker episodes yet. I do plan to eventually watch them. But
I remember mostly the sense I had of just really like, because I was little when Tom Baker was around, but I just liked him. He was fun, and he had the really funny long scarf, and he had jelly babies. He always had sweets. Can't go wrong with a man with sweets. But
right.
well, maybe that's the reason they taught us not to take sweets from people. Maybe, who knows? But yeah. He just was. He felt safe. He felt like it's somebody you'd want to go and you'd want on your side if there was a disaster.
Yeah, right, so, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we are approaching. Let's see. So it's been 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh, crikey! I did warn you that it would be more about stopping me talking.
And I am totally okay with that, Derri. I am going to go ahead and say that we'll go ahead and end it here.
Yep, fair enough.
Unfortunately, because I would love to keep going all night. You are a fantastic guest, and
thank you.
We'll have to do this again. We'll just have to do a part.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'd love to have you.
I'm all about the reruns.
Yeah.
Rereads,
yeah, absolutely.
Rewatch.
I'm planning on doing some Chas and Friends remixes in the future here, so we'll get you back on. And
awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a real pleasure. I'm honored that you were able to come on and join me. So
spending time with my BookTube friends is just the best fun ever. I will be buzzing for this for the rest of the day. I'll be able to sort my stickers with relish.
With relish, yeah. There you go. I love it. Yeah, you can sort your stickers with the knowledge that you've had your social interaction for the day with your book.
I have more than filled my quota.
Yeah.
It's been fabulous hanging out. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the chat who have been incredibly gracious to me today.
Yeah, you guys have been amazing. And
payment will come with the next post.
What's that?
Payment for all of the compliments will go out with the next post.
Right? Payments in the mail.
That's the one.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. Make sure you read more books. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.